welcome to the Articulate Ox podcast. I'm your host, Soma79. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode. My guest today, Katy Newton, art therapist, yoga teacher, designer. I loved talking with Katy. We do something a little different on this episode where we do a lightning round of 79 questions, meaning that I wrote up 79 kind of random questions ahead of time and we just fired them off, and Katy was nice enough to answer all of them. So this episode is a little supersized because we talked for about a half an hour before we even get into all that, and I didn't really know how long that was going to take, but apparently longer than I would have anticipated. So hope you enjoy it. This is actually a new format I might try out on some different interviews. So if you're listening now and you're an artist and you kind of want to get hammered with 79 lightning round questions from Zoma79 himself, then hit me up. All right, cool. Hope you enjoyed the episode. That was my cat that just knocked the camera around. All right, peace. Bye. Hey, welcome to the newest episode of the Articulate Ox podcast with your host, Soma79. My guest today is Katy Newton. How are you doing today, Katy?
I'm doing great. Yes, Articulate Ox. I love that.
Thank you very much. So, Katy, you do work in fashion. You are a mental health counselor. You are an art therapist. You are a yoga instructor. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I will. Yes. So, well, first off, shout out to Soma79. I've been following you since 2016, I think. So I'm glad that we got to connect.
Baby back then. Thank you.
Yes, that's right. I know. So I was just emerging onto the art and fashion scene back then. I actually asked for your advice on some art I was making. So that was, it's fun to have that come full circle. But awesome. Since then, since we first talked, years ago, I finished my graduate program as an art therapist. And then I now work as an art therapist and a licensed mental health counselor. But for fun and for art, I make wearable art. So I've been doing fashion since 2014. And then got more seriously about 2018, and everything I make is out of like upcycled materials. It's either trash or it's like upcycled garments that are already in existence, that sort of thing, and then just transform and make into something pretty unique. I feel like the more unique the material is, the more unique the garment's going to be.
Wow, that's really cool, because I've been watching what you've been making for years on Instagram, and you're one of those people who you're always one of the first people in my stories, because I always watch yours because they're always so interesting. I never really know what to expect out of it. I didn't realize all the stuff you're making was upcycled. That's
I like that. Yeah,
impressive.
It's true. So it's interesting. So when we first started talking years ago, I was working before I started graduate school. I was working at Eli Lilly, which is a drug development company, as a toxicology technician, which is totally weird. But I would handle these samples that came in these really awesome, like awesomely engineered, brilliantly engineered packing materials. And I was like, I just can't stand to throw this stuff away. Yeah. And then I'd have a lot of downtime. So I'd just walk over this huge science complex, and there'd be boxes of laboratory junk outside of the labs that would be just ready to be thrown away. So I started pilfering through them, and I'm like, there's like pipette tips, there's like centrifuge parts, there's test tubes, there's all this like trash that they were throwing away, but it was like awesome trash. Like,
you're after my own heart. I'd be the same way.
Yeah, for sure. I was like, I could visualize how I could take the pipette tips with like the warped Tupperware lids and make like a hat or something, So I started collecting these things, and then I just started making things for fun. And then somebody asked me to be part of a Day of the Dead fashion show at a local museum here in Indianapolis. And that was kind of how I got into the art scene. And then that's when I started doing fashion, and then just it kind of took off from there.
What is really the culture like in Indianapolis? A city I've never really been to. Is fashion big there, or what's the feel of this thing?
What it is right now is that speaking of Lilly, Eli Lilly gave the city of Indianapolis a $43 million endowment for the arts. So the art scene is popping here right now. It's like there's so many opportunities for artists of like all levels. Awesome. The fashion scene is like everything's like emerging. So right now in Indianapolis, everything's like blooming with art. It's everywhere. There's murals going up on every Jiffy Lube in the city. There's like every dilapidated building's being refurbed into some sort of maker space. It's just a really neat time to be in Indianapolis right now. So it's always like that, but it's been like that since I think you and I started talking. These ideas started to come to fruition about 2014, 2016, around there.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, where are you from? Where do you live?
So I live out in Western Massachusetts. I'm from like the Boston area. I grew up in Hopkinton, which is where the Boston Marathon starts. So it's
That's
pretty
fascinating. I wonder
small town.
how I found you on Instagram. I must have just one of those random things, I guess, right? But
Yeah, I know.
amazing.
It's weird. I mean, it's funny. Like that's one of the things I like about doing this is that I mean, where I live in a town of about 5,000 people. I rarely meet anybody with similar interests. So like my girlfriend has to listen to me ramble about stuff she doesn't care about. So this gives me an opportunity to actually connect with other people who have similar interests.
That
It's
this is the perfect job for you then as a podcast, because then you can ramble all you want, and
yeah, yeah,
nobody's there to hear you. So I like that,
yeah.
and I love talking about this stuff. So thank you.
Yeah. So let's talk. So art therapy is something that really interests me. It's something that I had thought about maybe going into when I was at a sort of a career
Mhm.
crossroads a few years ago, and obviously I didn't. But what got you into art therapy, and what is like a typical day as an art therapist like?
Oh, I love this question. So I was a client in an art therapy group at an addictions clinic back in like 2008, right? And I had never done art. Like I think the furthest I went as far as doing art was probably middle school, right? But I went into this addictions program. There was this man there. His name's Jim Beitman. He's the first like licensed art therapist in the state of Indiana. Dude was like a wizard to me. He looked like a wizard too, he had like long nails and like a beard and like silky hair and stuff. But there was a mixed population of people, anything from like men that worked on the railroad blue collar to like soccer moms to the person from under a bridge that's been shooting heroin. You get everybody across the
Yeah.
gamut in these groups, right? And I saw how he used art therapy with these hostile personalities, different personalities, and he'd have something new every single day. And he was like a wizard to me. He was like, he just to see how he could overcome obstacles for these people that traditional therapy could not, right? And also on top of that, he kind of showed me that I was kind of good at art, or at least I enjoyed it, and
Hmm.
gave me a lot of confidence because he kind of like fostered that for me. And so when I was thinking about when I was working at my with my rat testicle samples at Eli Lilly, and I'm like, this job is not for me, what am I going to do? I thought back to like pivotal moments in my life that changed it for the better, and I thought back to that art therapy group, and I'm like, what's it take? What do you have to do to become an art therapist? Like I was wondering about that. So you have to take 18 hours of studio art or have that from undergraduate. And then you
Hmm.
have to have upper psychology level classes, which I did have from undergraduate. So I started taking these art classes. That's about when I contacted you about my zine that I was making, my comic strip. And then you create a diverse portfolio. You apply to the programs, 2-year program. You have a clinical internship, things like that, and then you become an art therapist. So that's kind of how I got into it. And it was later on in life. I was an older person in my cohort. I was like with 20-year-olds, people straight from undergraduate. I was in my 30s, had a family already and stuff. So a typical day is so fun. It is the funnest job ever. I work with the funnest people. You never know what you're going to get, right? And the thing about art therapists is like they can improvise. They can improvise, adapt, and overcome. They have the materials there. I work in community mental health now. I moved away from working in addictions, and I have a lot of schizophrenic patients. I have a lot of personality disorders. Those behaviors are really disruptive, right? And
Hmm.
so you just have to like roll with the punches. Sometimes literally you have to roll with it. You're
Yeah.
going to get punched, so you get the art stuff out. The art is the buffer between the negative emotions and the person administering, right? And then you
Hmm.
can channel all of these things into art. It can be very like cathartic, or it could simply be, here's something to like pass the time. Here's
Right.
a positive habit to replace a bad habit.
Right. So you mentioned that you when you were a patient in a facility that you had your first art therapy experience, and that was when art came out of you. How important was it to you in that moment to have somebody who was able to see something in you that you didn't see? Was that an
it was
impactful
it was
feeling?
it was pivotal. It was like, here's a person, like, because you're not living your life to the best if you end up in a rehab facility, right?
Right.
I've already like fucked a bunch of things up, like squandered some major opportunities, things like that, like,
Hmm.
and then you end up in this place, and this person's they see you, they see the talent that you have, or the potential that you have, and that's like my personal mantra as a art therapist. All humans are innately creative. I mean, creativity doesn't just have to go into artwork, right, or whatever. It goes into problem solving skills. It goes into
Hmm.
how you operate in the daily world. So each human being I know is a creative being, right? And so I like to help people unlock that. because when they have that creativity, they have the power to solve problems.
Right, because a lot of people that I think you see in your day-to-day life that don't seem creative, I think they're people who just don't feel like they have the permission to be creative, or their life doesn't
Exactly.
allow them to do that. But I do think it's something that we're all born with, and then we slowly, like a lot of people slowly move away from it because it doesn't
Right.
seem like it's not the straightest line between A and B. It's usually a very crooked line between A, B, C, D,
Right, you're
double
exactly right. And I
Q.
think people associate the word creativity with being artistic, right? Or being outside of the box or something like that. When you get, especially when you get into like adulthood, you get into a routine or something,
Right.
you don't have a lot of opportunities to be creative. But that, I mean, instinctually humans evolved from creativity. If you think of like problem solving skills back in like Neanderthal time, they
Yeah.
had to figure out how to use creativity to survive, right? So
Yeah.
it's innately in
Someone
each
had to
in each
build a
one of
wheel.
us. Exactly. That's right. Cave drawings, all that stuff,
Yeah.
making fire, making spears or whatever they were doing back then. But it's an innate thing and everybody's got it. So I do think you're right. People don't have the give themselves permission to be creative, or people don't understand like how valuable it is, or that, doing things like that is a waste of time or something. So I'm here to give that gospel and be like, listen, everybody can do this, right? And it will improve your life if you do so.
Yeah, yeah. Is you find with your patients that you do see improvement, or like what's a good positive response that you've seen out of
Positive
patients?
response. So we start with like the group. I run groups, right? So the
Mhm.
group is like a microcosm of the real world, right? A lot of the people that are there, they forgot even how to be a person, right? They
Yeah,
don't know how to like operate within a group, follow rules, follow social norms, just being polite, or just behaving in a way that is like acceptable within other people, right? They're
right.
just so, when you're entrenched in like the throes of schizophrenia, I mean, you're not really thinking about anything that's sensical, let alone the consideration of others. So the group itself, if you even took the art away from it, serves as a microcosm to teach behavior, right?
Right.
Is to help people learn how to be.
Because
Then
objectively
the art,
speaking, like not judgmentally, it is very you're very self absorbed when you have those states, because your mental state requires you to be self-absorbed, requires you
yeah,
essentially to live in your own
absolutely,
world and then to
right.
interact with others, especially others that have similar issues, is
Mm-hmm.
is difficult. It's
Right, exactly. It is difficult, and and the people that I work with, a lot of the people I work with are some of our group homes. We have group homes where a lot of these people I'm describing live together. So they have a clinical staff that helps them with medication, teaches them basic life skills, ensures that they do hygiene and stuff like that. So I'm kind of working with people that are in that phase where they're in treatment, right? They're getting treated regularly with medication, things like that. But the outcomes of what I'll see is like, I use art one to get a baseline, right? We'll do a basic art therapy assessment. There's an interesting one that we use called the PPAT, and that's a person picking an apple from a tree, right? You just
Mhm.
draw that. That's all you need to draw. You use Mr. Sketch markers, like the scented ones, like it has to
Yeah.
be those markers specifically, and then a regular piece of printer paper. And then what you're assessing for is one, cognitive ability, can they follow the instructions? Two,
Mhm.
problem solving skills. Is there a basket to get the apples? Is there a ladder? How realistic is it? Is it nonsensical? How do they represent themselves in the drawing? Like you could tell if somebody's in active psychosis if, for example, the background, the tree and the apples are normal, but the person is distorted. The person
Oh, that's
draws
interesting.
themselves in a distorted way. Yeah, it's really wild. So then you use the fundamentals of art, like line quality, use of space, preservation, these different things to get a read on defense mechanism. You get a read on you can get a preliminary diagnosis of what's going on with people from that sort of thing.
This may be sort
So
of a
that's
weird question, but so to what
mhm.
degree did the patients understand that they're engaging in this sort of exchange, I guess is.
So when it comes to doing an assessment, I'm pretty explicit about that. I tell them why we're doing this. Do they understand those more sophisticated concepts? Some of them don't. Some of them do. When you explain that, some of the ones that do sometimes will be like, well, I don't want you to get it, or, things
Right.
like that, or whatever. But then the other things that we do that are more like driven to heal trauma, or they're more driven to boost mood, decrease anxiety, things like that. Or if you're looking from like a solution focused standpoint, like for example, on Wednesday, we did make a collage, half of it's your needs, half of it's your wants. Where does it overlap? How do we differentiate between the two? Right. So it can be anything from like from diagnostic to like deep catharsis of getting rid of trauma to like, let's get down to the basics and just do problem solving skills, or like, what do you need to have a home? what do you need to have a house? Like those two different things. Like home, we need love, we need belonging, we need safety. House, we need spoons and blankets. Those sorts of things. So
That's really interesting. I've never thought of it that way, but that's something that I'm definitely going to be pondering on, the difference between what it means to have a house and what it means to have a home.
yeah, right.
That's
Because it's like,
interesting.
you have, let's say you have your hierarchy of needs met, right? You have everything you need. You have a roof, you have a couch, you have food, you have clothes, but like you're still lonely and you're still miserable, because
Right.
people need love, people need companionship, things like that. It's a lot of the things that the people I work with, they have a lonely existence really, because it's very hard to be in a relationship. It's very hard to even have relationships with family members because
Yeah.
their behaviors can be so extreme and so destructive. And
I can relate
the
to that with my family. It's difficult, and then it's hard on both sides, and you both
mhm.
wish it was better, and
Yeah, it is hard. It's the worst. One of the most challenging populations to work with are people that have personality disorders, because this is not something that's a chemical imbalance in your brain. These
right.
are mal behaviors, and it's fascinating, but it's incredibly difficult to navigate those
Right.
type of
It
clients,
they
because
t they tend to be kind of exhausting people in general, just because
yeah,
they'll keep going when you're when you think they're ready to give up. They've just started sometimes.
you're right. Here, I've got this book right here. This is the I Hate You, Don't Leave Me book. This is the borderline personality book right here.
I
Borderline
haven't
personality.
read that one, but I've read a bunch of books on borderline personality disorder. The
This one's
Sociopath
great.
Next Door. If you've never read The Sociopath Next Door by Martha Stout, I bought that for like 10 people in my life. It's
Did you are you surrounded by sociopaths? Was this like, here's a helpful hint?
Well,
Like,
it's just one of those things that like they don't teach you about personality. They don't teach you about how dangerous personality disorders are, and how they don't really
mhm,
teach you enough about empathy. And I
right.
think there's people most people in the world want to think that like person to person most people are good. And I think it's important to know there's some, and maybe good is too judgmental of a word, but there's certain people who are just operating on a slightly different frequency, and being aware of that is important. And
Yes.
it's, and
Yeah.
then knowing how to sort of, I have this thing that I do that I tell people at work that there's certain people at my job, and I don't go to the work anymore. I work from home remotely. But there are certain people who I'd say I have to have car crash conversations with. There are people who my anxiety goes up just thinking about them, because it's always going to be about them. It's always going to be
Mhm.
go on for too long. But they say that when you get into a car crash, try to make your body go limp so that you don't get injured. I try to do that emotionally when I feel like I'm gonna have a car crash of a conversation. I just try to take those deep yoga breaths and let myself go limp, and realize this
Yeah.
conversation is going to happen. It's too late to hit the brakes, and just allow this person to be heard, because a lot of these people, they're the way you feel about them and the way you want to react is the way that everybody reacts. So if you give them off a
Mhm.
different energy, you're often going to get one back, and people just want to be heard a lot of times, and it
Right. That's brilliant. Yeah,
helps.
and that's a lot of part of like of what counseling is really. It's like people just want to be listened to. They want to be
Right.
seen. They want to be heard. They want to feel understood. But that's a brilliant analogy of letting your body go limp, like just not reacting to the people. And it's like that's a conversation we have all the time. It's like we can't control what others do and how others act, but we can control how we respond.
Because once your body goes tense, then your mind starts going tense too.
That's
So
exactly
it's kind of
right.
cutting it off at the source, and then you're just like, okay,
Yeah, yeah,
let,
that's right. No,
let the
you're right. That's
airbag smack you in the face and just let them ramble.
right. Like this is going to be destructive, but you just got to sit back and and go for the ride. So that's a
Right.
great way to understand it. The borderline people, the personality disorders are fascinating, but they are challenging. But as a therapist, like the people that really get your heart are the people that have like schizophrenia. They can't. That's something they're born with. It's usually onset a little bit later, in life, usually like teenage time or adolescence is usually when you'll see that onset. But they're just precious to me, especially these folks that come from the group home, because I work with them very closely. I'm like in their home environment, so I
Mm-hmm.
get to see how they function day to day, and it just tickles me. Like they just tickle me to death because they're just so precious to me. But then I have a whole roster of outpatient clients I see that are anywhere from depression, just like chronic depression, anxiety, to like more sophisticated things like we described, borderline personality disorders, and then also DCS cases, things like that.
So for somebody who may have family members with schizophrenia, what may be some advice that you would give them about how to deal with them on a day-to-day basis and what to be prepared for?
Gosh, that's hard. It's really hard. I think I like what you said about being being empathetic, trying to be empathetic, but it's difficult to empathize because empathize is like I feel with you. But when you see
Right.
somebody that's having these intense experiences
Can't
that
truly relate.
you can't truly relate. That's exactly right. So my advice would be find a support group, find a support group of people with that have family members like that. I have somebody who's severely schizophrenic who lives with his brother, and it's so sad to see how the brother copes with it. He doesn't have healthy coping mechanisms, resorts to self-destructive behaviors, things like that, because he is also isolated because he has this person he has to care for. He can't have friends over. He has, that sort of thing. So healthy support system for sure. That would be one piece of advice. I don't have a whole lot of experience working with families, with the exception of this one client, but I do see how it impacts the family, and so many family members just run, they institutionalize. But I would get a support group, find your own therapist. If you want to help them, make sure that they are participating in medication management, if that's something, or get to a provider that has something called like a care manager, which is a person that can help coordinate their care, actually comes out and works with the person and helps them. That's what I did before I became a therapist. I worked as a care manager, and I'd go into their home, make sure they're taking their meds, make sure they're getting out of bed, kind of help them with more day-to-day type of thing.
Well, that's very helpful stuff. I appreciate that. So we're gonna get to this in a few minutes. We have a lightning round that this is the first time we've done this in the Articulate Ox podcast. Where I have 79 questions that we're gonna see if we can get through. But before we get to that, so what we usually talk about in this podcast is things that inspired you. We usually ask the guests to come up with a few topics. So you mentioned a few. I got my first introduction ever to Love and Hip Hop Atlanta today, which
which season did you watch?
I watched like a YouTube video that showed like clips from different seasons so I could kind of get an idea. So it was just like these random scenes where things kind of start off and everything's okay, and they slowly escalate and then they're not. And you're like, it's I'm I'm somebody who's a little uncomfortable around people fighting, and so these shows, like I was watching on the elliptical and I kind of find myself like looking around the room because I'm just so uncomfortable watching two people argue.
That's hilarious. I can just imagine you on the elliptical trainer, like.
Yeah, I'm like looking like, and I'm like imagining I'm like, I don't know if I was there, what would I do? Like, would I stop them?
So
would
funny.
I guess I'd be one of those guys in the black shirts behind them going, is it time for me to jump in? Like,
yes,
so
right now,
what is it about that show that inspires you?
The fashion. I don't know if you watched it.
Oh yeah, there was some. I definitely love some of the fashion choices.
It's the fashion. Their fashion is wild. It's so. I mean, like those types of reality shows. I've always liked hip hop for one. And they have a whole franchise. Like there's Love and Hip Hop New York, L.A., Miami, but the most endearing characters are in Atlanta. I've been to Atlanta. Atlanta is a vibrant place. I love it. I've been to the Bronner Brothers hair show, like where they have the wigs and the competition and all this stuff. I love that, and I feel like African American fashion, especially in the hip hop world, and it is just glamour. They really like the most prominent designers in our town in Indianapolis are all in African American community. They've been doing fashion shows long before like at churches, at like community centers. They've always been doing this stuff. That show, I mean, sure, I like the drama, right? Because I don't mind a cat fight, getting a drink thrown, all that stuff. I'm okay with that stuff. But their fashion is out of control. And it all comes to like the very end at the hub. They have a reunion, right, where they all get to come and talk about all the stuff that happened. They show the best clips, but at the reunion is when they really show out with the fashion. They show up in the gowns, or like the ass is out or the back of the dress.
I gotta
like
watch that.
like the weave is like insane, and it's just like stuff. It borders on drag almost, and drag is really what my true inspiration is. It's like because it's so over the top with the nails, the hair, the the glamour and all that stuff. And really what I find to be like the most beautiful is like does not exist in the natural realm of beauty. Like RuPaul Charles is the most beautiful woman in the world to me, and that's not even a woman. This is like a man that's got all of these supernatural looking features, like giant hair, beautiful big gowns, tall, things that don't exist in the natural realm of beauty. I like surreal looking stuff.
And just like the gift of like the gift of gab and the confidence and the swagger that RuPaul sort of has too, that just it all comes together. It's just it's the assembly of parts is just amazing.
That's exactly right. And RuPaul is somebody who created a platform. I've been watching RuPaul's Drag Race since before I ever started in fashion, before I ever had a child. probably in early recovery at that point. I started watching RuPaul's Drag Race season 1. It was like very low budget. The camera looked like it had like a smeared Vaseline on it, had this filter on it. The prize was only $10,000. The queens were like, you know, just kind of like noobs, you know. But
Yeah.
what I loved about that show was that that's where I learned how to make clothing, is because they'd be like, okay, we're taking everybody to the dollar store. You're going to get
Right.
$100 to fill it up. And everybody's going to go in the workroom and you're going to make a couture gown. I watched every single episode of that show all the way up to the current episodes. Everything that I've really made, most everything has been inspired and I've learned from watching that show. Also trial and error, of course, but that's what you see them doing. You see them doing
Right.
trial and error stuff. So RuPaul created a platform for drag queens to make it mainstream. And now like the prize on the show is like $200,000. And then if you're on that show, it propels you into stardom, right?
Right.
It's like they created this platform to make the form of drag mainstream, legitimize the art. And that is really inspiring to me.
So would you say that's some of your earliest memories of drag, or did it go back prior to that?
Oh, I have no, my best friend in high school was a drag queen. So I graduated from high school in 1999. I had the only drag queen in the small Indiana town I was from. His name was Denny Thompson, RIP. He went by Chanel DVA. And I remember he'd come over, we'd do hair and makeup. I had a Polaroid camera. We like drape a sheet on the wall and do photo shoots and stuff like that. He taught me how to do hair, taught me how to do nails, taught me how to jerry rig like photo backdrop and like a lighting system and stuff like that. Taught me all of those things. And that goes all the way back to when I was 16, 17
You
years
got to
old.
be pretty brave to be out in drag in high school in like 1997, 8.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
you know, there are
Yeah.
people
Especially in
because
the Midwest.
right. I graduated from high school in 97, and there are a few people who years later I think came out as gay, but there was really no one openly gay in my high school. No, really, there was
Mm-hmm.
one kid who would wear a pink boa every once in a while, but like that was like it. And then it's just I grew up around none of this, and I mean I'm someone who
Mm-hmm.
identify as non-binary, and like, but
Mm-hmm.
these were things that didn't exist when I was a kid. It was like I
Right.
just felt different, but you know, I was sort of brought up to think that everybody was kind of just cut from the same, you know, cracked from the same ice cube, you know.
Right, exactly. And you know, and I met that person when I was like ostracized by my friends. You know, I mean, in small towns, especially, I have more hope for generations today. My son's friends are quite lovely and accepting, and all these concepts are at the forefront now. But back then, I mean, I was ostracized from my friends. I didn't have any friends at all. And was a total outcast, like publicly humiliated, and all these cruel things that happened in high school.
Yeah.
And this person, the only gay kid in school, was my friend then, and not only my friend was like a super glamorous friend that like told me I could be like work and like, just gorgeous and doing and wearing all the things I wanted to wear, acting the way I wanted to act. Cause I always had this like drive and desire to want to be and look glamorous and wanting to wear things, but you couldn't do it there. People make fun of you,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
like you want to be glamorous and cool, but this person's like, I don't give a fuck. This is who I am. Like I was born this way. I can't fight this, so this is what I'm going to do. And there was one gay bar in town called Our Place. And that was the place where he did
Aptly
his first
named.
drag.
That's
Yeah, our place. That was it. And so that was the place where he did drag. And, I'm really thankful to have that relationship with that person, because that's exactly what I needed at that time in my life, was to have this person to encourage me to like be glamorous and teach me how to bring it forth.
I'd say especially too around, we're about the same age, especially around the 90s. It's a little different now with social media because the world, you don't have to go too far to find people, even if they don't live near you, but that are sort of like you.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, I remember never thinking, like I grew up like 25 miles from Boston, but it might as well have been 2,500 miles. Like it was like it didn't feel like I lived anywhere near there.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like there was no one there to tap me on the shoulder and go, there's a bigger world out there. I think more so there's people who want to tell you the opposite, to go, you can do this, to go that, so you can go just be like that guy over there. But like there was to have somebody who's showing you that there's a bigger world out there and you can be something different. It's a very valuable thing to have.
Oh, you're right about that, and I think that's true, and it's interesting to hear that from somebody that lives so close to Boston, would have a similar experience as somebody like me who lives in the Midwest, who I consider Indiana to be hillbilly, like unsophisticated, but to learn that somebody that's out in a out on the East Coast could have a similar experience like that
Yeah.
makes me feel like more universal. Like this type of thing is more of a universal concept, really. But
We got some
but
hillbillies out here too.
Are there hillbillies out
Well,
there?
there's a lot of I mean, I think Massachusetts you would think is like, so left turning they're spinning in circles, but there's so many pockets of like, Trump country out here a little bit. And New Hampshire's like is, not to offend my all my New Hampshire listeners, but Hampshire's sort of like North Florida to some degree, but without some of the fun. Like
Okay, that's so funny. I can't wait till my friend from New Hampshire on Instagram hears this, because I was like, "Oh, you're
wow.
from New Hampshire? How exotic!" I was like, "How that must be so like so sophisticated and interesting." It's like, believe me, it's not. I'm
It's a
like,
lot
well,
of
I've never been
snowmobile
there.
dealerships and places you can buy gravel, like and fireworks. Like that's sort of
That's
like
hilarious.
yeah, it's a lot of vanity plates. I think vanity plates are cheaper up there.
That's awesome. We have lots of vanity plates here, and I live right behind, like across my alley over here is a fireworks store slash Halloween store.
Oh,
So it's like, yeah, just like the floodlights come in through the backyard and stuff like that. Like we live in like kind of like a poor white neighborhood, but it's like it still they will trump up the change to get the vanity plate. It will be there, it will be on the car for sure. So
yeah. All right. So I don't know how long it'll take to get to these questions. You want to jump
it's
into some
okay.
of them?
Let's go for it.
All right. All right. So I have 79 questions here. They range all sorts of whatever. Feel free to say pass on anything, and we'll just go through them. What's your earliest fashion memory?
Earliest fashion memory. Okay, I remember. So this was when I got a pair of Chuck Taylors and a white pair of jeans, and then I think like United Colors of Benetton was popular back then. You remember that?
Yes, of course.
Had
Remember
the
the
black.
ads.
It was a very masculine looking outfit, and then I had an older sister who was into grunge. Right at that time, she's like Nirvana, but we did not get along. So I secretly thought she was cool, but like I still hated her, and like we had that sibling thing or whatever. So I didn't ever really want to let on that I thought she was cool, but I had this masculine looking outfit that I really wanted to wear, and I thought it was cool. It was like Chuck's white jeans, this United Colors of Benetton, kind of like rugby looking shirt or whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember my friends, like making my friends that were like these cheerleader girls, like making fun of me or whatever about this outfit that I wanted to wear. I remember writing in my diary, like, I really want to wear my outfit, but my friends are going to make fun of me and stuff. And then my friends found my diary and then made fun of me about what was in the diary. And I was just like, this is just terrible.
Rat spoiled again.
I can't even write about an outfit without being made fun of. I didn't even wear it, So that was something that I
Wow.
remember. But now, like, I don't give a fuck, and I feel like I can blaze my own trail and like set a trend in this little like pocket of people I'm with in Indiana.
All right. Best album to listen to while you're cleaning the house.
Oh, I really like the Strokes album called "Is This It." I can listen to every single track on that album without skipping a track, like every single one. Also, if there's any type of true crime podcast, can listen to it all day long.
Oh,
Doesn't
I'm
matter.
I'm so into true crime. Yeah.
Yes, if it's murder, I will do it. I know my family's like, this, how is this not affecting your brain? Like listening to all this murder all the time. It's like, I
Like,
love
huh,
it.
who
I
said it
love
isn't?
it. Yeah. Yeah, that's my
What's the
thing.
right amount of yoga to do in a week?
I would say you could do yoga. You could do it every single day at a minimum. You could do it once and do a meditation, but let's go with like 3 times a week. How's that sound?
That sounds
Something there's a
about good for me.
power in the number of three, right? You could do it three
Yep.
times a week.
Yep. Cool. If you could live in any TV show, what would it be?
Oh gosh, let's see. I would live in the Golden Girls for sure,
Oh,
no doubt. I
I
would live
watched
with
so much Golden Girls as a kid. Like when it reruns air now, I remember like every joke, and I haven't seen it in like 20 years. It is buried into my brain.
still funny, and it's still funny. And the fashion, Blanche's fashion was always really good. I didn't really like Dorothy's cowl necks. They always
Yeah.
draped her in like these long things,
Yeah,
but
yeah. She
Blanche was
was always
always
kind of
stylish.
dressed like a woman in Star Wars. Like,
Yeah, you're exactly right. And what I liked about that show so much is that they were like best friends. It's like I want to go live with these people. I had so many shitty friends growing up. It's like these
yeah,
ladies are down for each other for real, and they were hilarious. They were always hooking up with guys. They're like
yeah,
living their best life in Miami with your best friends. That's the show I live in, hands down.
right. Which is funny because it's like now you're like there's gonna be four grandmas like joking about sex. They'd be like, "Oh, that's no one's gonna watch that." You know, like whatever.
But
Um,
that shit will never go away. It will always be around.
yeah. What was your first concert?
I went to Jimmy Buffett. Can you believe that? You know
That's
who
a
Jimmy
lot of
Buffett is?
out here. Jimmy Buffett's big. That's a lot of people's first. Mine was
It's
Smashing
successful.
Pumpkins, but
Yes. And so there's a place in Indiana called it's unknown to the like OGs as Deer Creek, right? Deer Creek, it's now like called Verizon Center
Oh,
or
we
something.
have Great Woods, which were the Jimmy Buffett shows now, and now it's called like the Comcast Center or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like corporates come over, took it over. I went to a Jimmy Buffett concert. It was too cold to be wearing all of the stuff. We had like the grass skirts and stuff like that. And I think I was underage. I was like probably 19, but managed to somehow get hammered at that concert. But
Yeah.
the age group for Jimmy Buffett fans is like 40, 50 and above, that sort of thing. So it was interesting. That was the absolute first one I ever went to.
Yeah. Which cast member or friends do you most relate to?
I don't relate to any of them. I hate that show. And if I had an antagonist in a movie, it would be Jennifer Aniston.
Really, it's for me. Courtney Cox is the one that bothers me the most on that show. Like I just Rachel. I mean, I don't know. So
I didn't like that show, and I'll tell you, it's like how the fans of a band can make you hate the band before you even hear the music.
yeah,
Because you're like, you suck, your taste sucks. All the people that I knew that sucked really bad loved that show, and they loved Dave Matthews Band. I mean, no
yeah.
offense to anybody out there that likes
No,
this
you're
thing.
talking about a lot of my high school, and I don't care if they're
Right.
offended.
Yeah, okay, exactly. And that's that was my high school experience. These people love Friends and stuff. It's like, no, I don't trust your tastes. I don't trust that show. Admittedly, I have probably never really watched even a full episode,
All
but
right. How about
nobody on
this?
that
Which
show.
Golden Girl?
Oh, Blanche, hands down. Blanche would be the one. I love her. Her outfits were great. She was sexy. She was funny. I think Dorothy's the funniest, but I would be Blanche or be best friends with her.
I think I would probably be Sophia. I don't really know why, but I feel like I'm someone who kind of likes coming in and out of it and like sort of just saying something that's either intelligent or whimsical
Right.
and then just drifting along into nonsense. I feel like that's
That's hilarious. Yeah, you have to frame each one of your things with like picture it. Sicily,
well, that's my
1954 or
favorite
whatever.
meme is last time I gave a fuck and it's Sophia going picture at Sicily 1912 or
Yes, that's right.
something.
That's a great meme, right?
That's my
See, and
favorite meme.
Sophia, the Golden Girls have made themselves into memes. So, I mean, look at how they will always be relevant, right? It's always going to
Yeah.
be funny.
Yep.
Mhm.
What are the top 3 fashion tips for the average person?
Okay, so top 3 fashion tips here. It depends on what you want to do. I have a good fashion tip though. This is for a busy person that has to make a lot of decisions, right? You can style your own personal uniform, right? Your own personal uniform. So black slacks, black blazer, silk blouse, or something like that. So you find a thing and you can make a uniform. Like I have every
Yeah.
time I wear a one-piece jumpsuit, right? This is the thing. This is the one outfit I wear if I ever go out and I'm out like with friends, which is not very often. If I go to an art thing, I wear the same outfit every time. I'm photographed in the same outfit, something that's flattering. It's essentially my going out uniform, right?
Yep.
That's a fashion tip. Another one, keep it classic. I'm not really into trends, although love and hip hop, out of control, right? I
Yeah.
almost would use the concept of trends to create some wild, elevate it into something super like conceptual, right? Some sort of fantasy piece. Trendy stuff to me is almost like a level of like immaturity or something. It just shows like you're still trying to figure out who you are. So
Mhm.
you're sampling trends, but like keep it classic, right? There's classic pieces. You can invest in like one or two really nice things, like a nice blazer, a pair of trousers, something that's flattering, something that's not going to fall apart, and keep it classic. And then another thing, just be yourself. Invest in some stretch pants. I mean, if you got some comfort somewhere, it's good to be physically comfortable in what you're wearing too, right?
Yep.
If you go to I think that lots of women's professional wear now has a level of stretch to it. Even men's
Even a
blazers
lot
do.
of men's. Yeah.
This guy came over to sell us some custom blazers the other day, and they were super expensive, but it had stretch to it, right? It was almost like he could perform in it, but it was like a dress blazer. So something that's like physically comfortable, because if you're not physically comfortable in what you're wearing, you're just gonna look not confident.
Yeah. I'm wearing pants like that now too that look like they're khaki material, but they're more of a stretch material. I'm like, where have you
I
been my
love
whole
that.
life?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you look totally relaxed, right? I mean,
Yeah.
how you wouldn't right? So you
Yeah.
don't want to be uncomfortable when you're trying to interview somebody.
Yeah. When is it acceptable to throw a glass of wine on someone?
Well, if somebody snatches your wig off your head,
It's
that's when.
yeah.
Somebody snatches your wig,
That's
you
in the
can throw it
Constitution,
right
I
in the
think.
face. Yeah, and if it's not, it should be. You should write
Right.
your congressman about that. If somebody snatches your wig, you can throw a drink in their fucking face.
Sounds good. Best song to get the dance floor started.
I want to dance with somebody, Whitney Houston. I think that's a good one. That's also one of my karaoke go-to
That
songs.
was
I'll do
another
that
question that
one.
was coming up. So
Yeah, Yes, right. That's a good one. I like that one. And then I also like that song Everybody Everybody by Black Box. You know what
Okay.
song? It's
Yep.
like da na da na da na
Hmm.
da na ow. Da, da, na. That one. I love that
Yeah.
one.
I think "Hypnotized" by Biggie is one of the songs that it
Oh
always
yeah.
transforms a room whenever
Yeah.
that comes on.
No, you're right. That was song. We used to call that song in high school the getting into trouble song because we'd put that song in the tape deck. I drove a Pontiac Grand Prix, and then we'd just go out and
Yeah.
find fuck up stuff or something.
Yeah. You kind of answered this before, but can anybody be an artist?
Yes, anybody can be an artist. It's not always about the product, it's about the process. If it's something that you enjoy doing, that's really what a big part of art therapy is about, is the process of the art. It's not necessarily what comes out at the end. You go into something with an expectation, you can be disappointed, right? So yes, absolutely anybody can be an artist. Once you externalize the art from yourself, it's like subjective anyways, about whether it's good or bad or whatever. It's up to the interpretation of the viewer, really. So the answer is absolutely yes.
Where do you want to be in 5 months?
In 5 months, I'd like to be uh more physically fit. I would like to be able to do like a pull-up or something like that.
Pull-ups
Be
are
able to do some.
hard.
I know, that's what I'm saying. But five
If you
months
want to
seems
get
like
good
a
at pull-ups,
reasonable
you have to
time.
get one of those bands, like one of the plastic bands, and start on those. I had a
Okay.
friend who went to prison and told me that was the advice he gave me.
Yeah, I like that. People in prison know how to optimize their creativity. I want to
Yes.
say that. My friend who's in prison, this will go off rails for just a second. He sent me a diagram of a guitar that he made. He made the guitar out of Pringles cans were like the stem of the guitar.
Wow.
And then he took a Ritz cracker box and made it as the body of the guitar. He used elongated, reinforced trash bags to make the strings, these like heartstrings. And then he used like a radio, like speaker or whatever to like make the amp on it and stuff. And he drew me a diagram
Holy
of the
shit.
guitar that he made in prison. I'm like, this is like optimizing your creativity. If you could have done this on the outside, you might be an
Right,
entrepreneur or something
right.
right now. So
That just tells me that I just whenever I take a vacation, like a staycation to work at home, it's like by day 7, I work on art at home. By day 7, I feel like I'm back to who I really want to be, the person who's thinking about art all the time. And then to put that person back in a box it always sucks.
boo.
And what's the weirdest dream that you can remember?
Okay, I have one time I had a dream inside a dream. That's a weird thing that I have, and it was about a bulldozer. But another dream that I have is like where I'm walking on a beach, and the beach is essentially like made out of like peach mashed potatoes, and I keep sinking into the peach mashed potatoes, and then in the distance,
Excuse me,
there's these
this
like
is important. Is there these peach colored mashed potatoes or peach flavored mashed potatoes?
peach,
People are gonna want to know that.
they're peach colored mashed potatoes, and it's like I'm sinking into them, and it's kind of like unpleasant. It's not. And then in the distance there's these peach colored sheep that are in the distance that are kind of the same consistent or same look as the mashed potatoes, but they're sheep. And I'm trying to make it up this hill of this peach mashed potato. Think like the color tawny sunset, if we had to
Wow,
call it that.
yes.
Tawny
Like an
sunset. So we're
antelope
walking.
fire mist.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We're walking to the antelope fire mist up up this like a beach made of mashed potatoes that are peach color, and there's sheep in the distance. And then waking up and feeling really frustrated and a little bit icky because I like just had to walk through this like
Yeah, that's a good one.
viscosity. Yeah.
I woke up screaming for the first time ever about a month ago that I had a dream that I was arguing with someone. I don't argue with anybody. And I literally woke up yelling.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, well, that's a new one for me.
That is new. Do you remember what the dream was about, or is it just
I
like
do. It was arguing with family members.
ooh, that sounds like it could be a reality. That's
Yeah, yeah,
it's like
yeah.
not fantasy enough to be a dream. It could woke up and be like, did I actually get in a fight with that family member, or what happened?
Yeah. Who was your childhood celebrity crush?
I liked Michael Jordan a lot. I think that back then, when I was probably in like third grade, the Chicago Bulls were like really big back then. That was like when kind of like when hip hop and sports collided, and you had a lot of that sort of culture, like the basketball style was starting to sink into like the style of mainstream. Having like a Bulls basketball jacket, like the
Yeah.
red shiny satin material, things like that. Um, I thought that Michael Jordan was, and he was just like unstoppable back then. He was like in all the things, that was somebody that I remember being really cool.
I feel the
Trying to
same
think
way
of
about Alyssa Milano.
Oh, was Alyssa Milano your crush?
Yeah, and I was thinking about her. She did. I remember the poster of her in the jerseys in the I think it's the New Jersey Devils jersey.
There you go. That's a common one. Alyssa Milano's great. I wonder what ever happened to her. Where's she at
She
today?
still does stuff.
Can we get her on the podcast? Do you think
I
she
would
could
love
talk
to.
to us?
I have a lot of
Yeah,
questions. I
so
just
me.
watched the movie Double Dragon. If you want to see it, some strange fashion choices, look at Google Alyssa Milano in the movie Double Dragon and just be prepared to be amazed.
Okay, I like that. I will take you up on that for sure.
Yeah. What game show would you be the best on?
Um, let's see, what game show would I be the best on? Like, maybe the game. Well, I don't know. I'd like to be on Price is Right. I think that would be pretty fun. I always like that mountain climber game. But
Yes,
like,
that's the best game. A friend of mine texted me
yeah,
recently, "What's the best game on Price is Right?" I'm like, obviously the Mountain Climber and then Plinko.
yeah. Yeah, Plinko, that's right. Plinko's just like the game of chance. Like you think you have a strategy with that one, but that
Yeah,
game is like off the hook. I mean, when at the end when you can get the double showcase SmackDown or whatever, and you win like the car, the Ford Escort, and the RV, like that to me is like super wild. I don't know if I would be good at the games, but I would be the most excited to be there because to me that game is like walking into like a slot machine. It's
yeah.
like bright, flashy. There's prizes. There's ladies, there's all kinds of stuff.
My friend's grandparents were on The Price is Right when we were in high school, and it happened to air on a day there was a snow day, and because we didn't have DVRs back then, so that's the only way we would have seen it. And Bob Barker was like, "So, do you watch this all the time up in Lebanon, New Hampshire?" And my friend's grandfather was like, "Not really, Bob." And Bob looked like he was gonna beat him with his tiny microphone.
With a tiny microphone. Yes. Have
Yeah.
you ever seen the documentary of the guy? It's called like The Perfect Bid or
Yes.
whatever. Have you seen that one?
Yes. I love
And the
that.
guy, he recorded all of the shows. He had all of the prices in like an old school like log, like analog log.
Yep.
And then he created like a Price is Right game, and then he was on the show. And I don't think that he won, but he helped somebody else win or something like
Yeah.
that.
There's another one about the show Press Your Luck that someone did something similar. The show with the
Mhm.
whammy, and it's a really fascinating documentary.
I
He
remember
was
that
able to keep
show.
the game going forever because he knew how to game it. So
I've seen that. I've seen that, right? Because he
yeah.
he picked up on the pattern of how the thing went around, the no
Yep.
whammy stop thing. Okay,
Yep.
that's funny.
Favorite style of dance?
Favorite style of dance? Well, I really like the kid and play dance that kid and play did on
Okay.
house parties.
I almost bought the Kid and Play on vinyl yesterday, and I kept going to stores and I kept seeing the price drop at each store. And I was like, "Does no one else want this Kid and Play album?" And I did eventually
Right.
didn't buy it because I can get it cheaper. But I love Kid and Play.
Yeah, kid and play, like the high and tight or whatever. The
Yeah,
kid
yeah,
and
yeah. The high
play.
top fade.
Yeah, and I know how to do that dance. That again was another popular thing back when I was in my Michael Jordan phase where I liked him. Kid and play was super cool. Um, and yeah, that would probably be my favorite dance.
Sweet. Do you have any hidden talents?
I don't usually keep my talents very hidden, honestly. I
Good
like to
answer.
I like to talk about them and showcase them as much as I possibly can. I do play the ukulele.
Oh,
That's something I'm pretty good at. And I
impressive.
found this that when I started playing the ukulele when I stopped drinking and using drugs, I needed something to like replace my time. And so when this is done,
Yeah.
I was at the rehab facility I told you about. I lived there for like 2 years, right? And so my sister sent me a ukulele. I started watching YouTube. And that all pop songs are really like constructed of like the same four chords or something.
Yeah.
Like once you learn one pop song, you could learn any pop song. And so I learned how to play it like anything like Lady Gaga to like Journey, all these different songs on the ukulele. And then I started writing parody music to those songs.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah.
Wow, that's
The
cool.
funniest thing, like the best way I know to like catharsize my like negative emotions, especially if people get on my nerves, is to write a parody song about how they suck. And then everybody laughs and then it makes me feel a lot better.
Are you one of those people who just walks around the house just singing songs that you made up?
Totally, all the time.
Me
Yeah,
too.
all the
Yeah.
time. About our pets, about my husband, about my kid, all kinds of anytime there's a song. Everybody also has like a nickname where their name's been reduced. Something's been derived from the original name, and now they
Yeah.
have weird, obscure names. So if I can tell you my husband's nickname, this is really weird. His nickname is Bluestall. Okay, this is really weird, but his name is Ryan. And here's how it went. It went from Ryan to Rybert to Rybertopia to Rybaloo to Rybalustamante to Rybloostal, then to Bluestall.
And it can go anywhere from here. It can get smaller, it can get bigger. It's
The weirdest thing. And then the thing is, he calls himself Blue Stole now. He calls himself that. So it's this weird. People are like, why do you call your husband Blue Stole? And I explain it, and they're like, it doesn't make any sense. But it was very organic the way that it happened.
That's funny. All right.
Yeah.
What was your first tattoo?
Was my the first tattoo I got was a Grateful Dead bear when I was 14 years old. So the shop
14.
teacher, 14, yeah. So the
So you would
shop
have been, that's
teacher,
like mid 90s. You couldn't even
yeah,
legally get a tattoo in Massachusetts,
uh,
no matter what age you were at, until about the year 2000. So that's
yeah.
impressive.
So I'll tell you how it happened. So the shop teacher at Terre Haute South, his son, his name was Billy Joe Henry. Billy Joe Henry dropped out of school and became a tattoo artist when he was probably underage. He probably wasn't even old enough to be given. He wasn't even 18, I don't think. But he dropped out of school, and everybody knew that you could go to Billy Joe Henry's and get a tattoo from him, for like in exchange for whatever. I think I gave him a Zippo lighter and a box of latex gloves. And he did a Grateful Dead bear on my low back, which is still there. It looks horrible now. And I didn't even
Did it
listen to
look good
Grateful
then?
Dead back then. No, it didn't look good then either. I couldn't see it. It was on my it's on my like low back, like down here. I couldn't see it. But then the next day, I was like, that didn't even hurt. I went back and got another one on my shoulder. It was just flash. It was a bear with a wizard hat and like stars around it or whatever.
Yeah.
And that was when I was 14 years old. And I thought I was super hardcore because I was the only teenager that had tattoos at my school.
I was like 37 when I got my first tattoo.
That's awesome. Hey,
I
at least you
waited a
got
long
one,
time.
right?
Yeah. Now I keep getting more. All right. Which is the worst trait in a romantic partner? Someone who claps when the plane lands, or someone who always puts a TV remote right in front of the TV so you have to get up to get it once you've already sat down?
Claps when a plane lands. What is that about? What is that? What does that mean?
There are some people who, when the plane lands, they start clapping as if,
Oh,
I don't know.
oh, you're like on the plane, so it's not like you see
Oh
a
yeah,
plane
yeah,
and you're like, okay. So I mean, like probably the remote thing. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
I don't want to have to get up. You know, I really don't. Once I'm seated, I don't want to have to get up for anything. But that's why I have a child. I'm like, hey,
yeah. My cats
go
haven't quite
get me
figured
the
that out
remote.
yet.
Yes.
All right. What's the first R-rated movie you ever seen? You ever saw?
Basic Instinct. I mean, I probably
Wow.
saw one before that, but Basic Instinct, I remember. So there was a Super America, which is a gas station down the street from my house. And I remember being in like fifth grade, walking down to the Super America with my best friend and renting Basic Instinct at the gas station, watching it at home, being like, what in the world is happening here? That movie, guy, like that movie, like sent me into a tailspin of like probably bad behaviors for the next 10 years to come.
That the Ghetto Boys album, We Can't Be Stopped, did that to me around the same point in my life where I was just
Yeah.
like, this is too adult for me right now.
Yeah, right, exactly. That's why
Yeah.
I was like, I have a kid now. I want to make sure he's not exposed to really adult concepts like that because I was really kind of like left unsupervised a lot. Like now when I think about like how like I just had free roam out on my bike, like doing all kinds of just out there, like
Yeah.
as a very young person. My kid is in sixth grade now, and I would not let him have that much freedom, not that I want to repress him at all, but I just
Yeah.
don't feel like it's
Fine,
safe
fine
for
line.
him to be out there,
Yeah. I think mine was the Blues Brothers. I think that was the first rated movie I ever saw, which is
Okay.
pretty tame. What's
Yeah.
something that is really popular that you don't get at all? Which you already said Friends, but is there anything else like that?
Yeah, there is. There's stuff. I think like some current day hip hop I don't like a whole lot. Kind of stuff with auto tune, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan. I don't really get that very much. It doesn't
Like
it
rap
kind
without
of
drums doesn't really make a ton of sense to me, but there's a lot of that going
Mhm.
on. Or like,
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of that. I'm also not a big fan of like the trend of like mom jeans and like big dirty white sneakers with like big glasses and stuff. Not really a big fan of that
yeah.
a whole lot.
I saw a
And then
lot of mom jeans on a lot of, because I live in like a college town area. I live like right
Mhm.
near UMass Amherst, and like I was down in Northampton yesterday, and I was in a coffee shop, and there was a lot of young women there that looked like early 20s. They had jeans that looked like they were from 1991. Like they look like
Yeah.
they should belong in a Ford Taurus wagon or Mercury
Yes,
City. I
exactly. I'm
mean,
like, why are you doing that to yourself? I get it. It's a trend. I mean, I'm okay with like a high waisted garment, like high waisted trousers. I like that. I think that looks elegant and things like that. But like the denim that comes up, like here's the thing:
yeah,
I don't wear jeans. I don't own anything that's denim unless it's a jumpsuit, right? I think I might have a denim hat, but like I don't wear jeans at all. That's just not how I like to
yeah.
use denim. So I'm not really into that.
All right. What's something that you know is bad but you still like?
Mr. Fogg,
Mr. Frog?
Mr. Fogg, and Coke Zero.
Ah,
I drink like 1,000 Coke Zeros a day. And since I don't drink, I haven't drank in over 2 years. I don't use drugs
good
or
for
take
you.
prescriptions or anything like that. But I used to party a lot. And so Mr. Fogg was like the answer to me, I guess.
What
So
is it?
never, it's a vape. It's
Oh, okay. It's like a
like a
nicotine vape. Oh,
mm.
okay. I haven't smoked, I haven't had nicotine in about 15 or 16 years, but I don't know. I feel like that would probably just send me. I smoked a cigar like 6 years ago and like either
Mhm.
puked or almost puked. So my
Yeah, it,
nicotine.
it it like tastes like fruit, but you know what the worst part? You know what this vape is called? I don't know if you can read that or not. It's called
Max
assault.
Pro.
No, it's called assault. This is the flavor.
Oh,
This is what assault tastes like. Assault, like sexual assault. It's like that's
oh,
what the
great.
flavor is. Assault. Yeah, exactly. So this is the only kind that I like though, but I find myself doing this stuff way too much. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Um, I think I sort of might have already asked one, but what song would pull you back on the dance floor if it came on while you were heading for the door?
Oh, okay. So, well, what song would play? I do like hypnotize, like we talked about before. But you know, if you give like one of those good things for like the Cupid Shuffle or some stuff like that, like just go ahead and get those. That's a good party starting song. Is get the Cupid Shuffle on. I like that one. But also the Black Box, everybody. That's a good one. Or any song by RuPaul, Cover Girl, or You Better Work. Those would all be good ones to get me back on the dance floor.
Is Grease 2 a good movie?
I don't like Grease 2. My sister likes Grease 2. I don't like Grease 2 because Grease 1 is something that I grew up on. Grease 1 is something. Also, I never realized how vulgar that movie is. It's rated G, but they say
Yeah.
all kinds of nasty stuff in those songs, all kinds of stuff.
Oh yeah.
And
Bad
I
News
just
Bears,
watched
they have a
it.
little kid saying the N-word, and that's rated like G or
Do they?
Peach.
Oh my God. I had no idea. No, see, that's insane. So yeah, they say all kinds of graphic sexual stuff in those songs. I just watched it again as an adult on vacation with my family. But no, I didn't think Grease 2 was a good movie. Sorry, sis. I don't like it. I like Michelle Pfeiffer, but I don't like Grease 2.
I see. I've never seen Grease, and I love Grease too. But Grease
Really?
2 is a wild movie. It's
It
pretty wild.
yeah.
The
Well, Grease
song they
1
sing,
was
the sex song they sing in the science classroom is just, oh man,
you
it's
like that?
something.
Like that one? Yeah. See, well,
Yeah.
Grease 1 has all kinds of sex songs that are like related to. They use a lot of metaphor and like the with the car and the grease and the
Yeah.
speed and the stuff like that. And plus, there's like this dance contest scene where there's this lady named like I know she's like the bad girl from the bad high school, and she comes and steals Danny Zuko away, and they do this like dirty dancing that's like insanity, and I just love it.
Yeah. It's funny how in Grease 1, I know ends with the car flying off in the sky, but nobody mentions that in Grease 2. They're like, hey, remember that car flew off here? Like,
Yeah, yeah. Like
Whatever happened to
where'd
Travolta?
she go? Exactly,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, so that's
Um,
what I'm saying. Grease too, they leaves too many unanswered questions for me, you
you
know.
might talk, you might have changed my mind. All right. What
Mhm.
was your strangest job?
Strange. Okay, this is interesting. So there was a job when I had graduated from undergraduate, and during that time when I was an undergraduate, I worked as like a model for like Stoli vodka or like Budweiser. You know, we'd go around and do all these promotions, Jameson whiskey and stuff, right? So I was connected to this modeling agency, and there was a girl that worked there too, and she's like, hey, I have some these guy friends are starting this business called Miss Pivot. And I was like, okay, Miss Pivot, what's that all about? And these guys were total, they described themselves as like total nerds that could never get a date, but they had this theory and they had done this research that if a nerdy guy goes out with a good looking woman, that other women will be interested in him because they're like, oh, well, look at that hot girls with that guy, he must have something special, right?
Yeah.
So this business was called Miss Pivot, where you are a professional wingman. You go out with the guy, you make the guy look cool, you fawn on him, you talk to other girls about how cool and interesting he is, and they in turn say, well, this girl's into this guy, so he must have something special, right? So I worked for them for a little bit. But they were, when I look back at it now, these guys like were so abusive to girls. They like this called astrology like chick crack, and like did all these things that like were stereotypical to like women that they think women would
Right.
like and
Like
stuff.
maybe they should be
But
working on themselves instead of working on fooling other people.
that's exactly right. And the interview was like this. So they interviewed me at like a restaurant or whatever. And like at the end of the interview, like these two other guys came like ambushed, and they were like, we were listening the whole time to like see if you're going to be a good pivot girl or whatever. And I was just like, this is fucked up, but like I really need a job right now. And
Yeah.
if you're going to pay me $20 an hour and it's like 2007, I'll do it,
And
you
if I
know?
know men, I'm sure a lot of them just hit on you. Like,
Yeah, they did. And these guys, they were nerds. They were like like, but they weren't that nice. Like that was their whole
Right.
thing was like, you got to be confident. They had this thing. This is really funny. They had this thing where they're like, you want to wear a necklace with like a big pin. It's called peacocking. It makes you interesting, right? Then you want to learn everything you can about astrology because it's chick crack. Girls love that stuff. I was just like, oh my God. Like, yeah, thinking back about it now, it's totally cringe.
Okay. You had a lot of good answers to these questions. It was good because I
Yeah,
got a lot more.
I have a lot. I have a lot of fucked up stuff. Like, just I have a really do have interesting things. That's why I like this form of questions.
What are you most looking forward to for the remainder of 2023?
Getting to do a pull up, man. I'm telling you, you check back with me in 5 months. I'm going to be doing a pull up. So,
All right.
right,
I got a
I'm in
pull
this
up bar in
like,
my basement, so maybe you'll inspire me to try to
do
get on it
you?
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do
I've
it,
never
man.
done more than like 3 at a time, and I probably couldn't even do one right now. They're
How
really
many can
hard.
you do? How many can you do? Can you
Oh,
do
the
one right
most I've
now?
probably ever done at a time is like 3 or 4. But like now
Okay.
I probably could maybe do one. I don't know. I'm more of the elliptical running, biking type thing, but I got to start doing more.
I love seeing dudes on ellipticals because it's like I just like that. I feel like you've reached a level of confidence to be on elliptical. I don't
Oh,
see a
I've been
lot of
doing
guys
it for
on
years. I, I
ellipticals.
have I have little shame. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, get after it. That's right. No,
You
so
know, you see,
check back with
once
me
you see my
then.
calves, you'll know why I'm on the elliptical. It's like the work
Yes,
shows.
they're like Christmas hams. That's
Yeah.
right. I love that.
Have you ever had a crush on a cartoon character?
Oh, I absolutely have Cowboy Bebop, right?
Really?
So Cowboy Bebop, yeah, one of the guys from Cowboy Bebop, and I remember talking about this with a boyfriend at the time, and I was like, I'm like sexually attracted to this cartoon character, and he said, well, I think that's just as realistic as being sexually attracted to a movie star. You're never going to meet either one of them, so I was like, well, there you go, that makes sense. Also, the Fox version of Robin Hood
Oh,
in the
a lot
Disney
of people have
movies,
said that. Yes, I've heard that before.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
some. I mean, like I guess Fox already has the natural being beguiled by a fox or whatever, but he was quite charming in the
Yeah.
British accent. Plus, he was like a rogue given to the poor,
Well,
that sort
I
of
think
thing.
he was kind of based on Errol Flynn too. I think he was sort of like the personality style was aped off somebody who was already sort of a sex symbol. So I think they kind of started there a little bit.
Yeah, well,
But
that nailed it.
yeah. I think for me, maybe Judy Jetson. I think I had a crush on her when I was a kid.
Yeah, Judy Jetson was good. I also like the fashion in the Jetsons
Me
too because
too.
it's super super kooky and stuff.
Yeah. What's something you learned about yourself during the pandemic?
Um, it's a good one. Um, I was still pretty creative during the pandemic time, that sort of thing. But I also learned that I'm not that good at following rules and like don't take things that seriously that maybe I should, like I was not one that was going to be with a mask. I didn't want to go get vaccinated. I didn't really wasn't taking it that seriously. Which is interesting because then I ended up getting into a project with one of the local fashion where there's actually a fashion magazine in this town, like a big, like it's a global publication, but they ended up having to do a gown making project, where we had to make hospital gowns for people because the hospitals were running out of the actual gowns. Like everybody's making
Yeah.
masks, right? But this place, I worked on this project where we were making gowns, and there's a car factory here because the Indy 500 is here, right? So
Yep.
there's something called the Dallara car factory where they have a laser cutter that cuts precision, lots of material at once. And so this car factory got in on this project when I'm making hospital gowns, started taking it more seriously because you could really see the impact. But like I learned that about myself that like if everybody else is doing something, I feel skeptical about it. I guess I've already kind of known that about myself, but it's like if everybody else is saying it, like I want to think critically and be skeptical about it and be
Right.
like, I don't necessarily believe you, but it also was forced into, having to comply with stuff or you can't participate essentially. So I just
Right.
you kind of fell in line.
Yep. Best thing for visitors to Indianapolis to see.
Oh, it's gotta be the art scene. I mean, like, I don't know because the art scene everywhere else is really cool. It's kind of still developing here. But I mean, there's things for people to see here, in Indianapolis in particular. I don't know. I mean, people come for like the Indy 500. I've never even been to that before, and I don't really think it's that great of a thing to see.
A lot
Um,
of pollution and a lot of noise.
yeah, that sort of thing. A lot of really intoxicated people, stuff like that. I'll tell you one thing that's interesting about Indiana, though. Indiana has more greenway trails, which I mean by that I mean bike paths than any other state in the nation.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
So the bike paths go from the north of the state all the way down to Kentucky, all the way across from Ohio to Illinois. You can take bike paths anywhere. And there are people that have come to live here that are avid cyclists, And that's really their only form of, by choice, their only form of transportation is to move to Indiana because of the Greenway Trail. So I think that's something that is special and that's worth seeing, because the bike trails go through really interesting parts of Indiana.
Very cool. Which Love and Hip Hop Atlanta character would you most like to be stuck in an elevator with for 6 hours?
Oh, I don't know if I want to be stuck with any of them.
Well, yeah, you have
Honestly.
to.
Okay, all right. So it's got to be Young Jock because he's funny. Young Jock is on Love and Hip Hop Atlanta. He also has a morning radio show every morning. He comes on. He's always on Instagram Live. He's hilarious, right? He's
Yep.
the funny,
I know who
endearing
he
one.
is. Yep.
You know who Young Jock is? Yeah, he's
Yep.
also a rapper too, right?
Yep. That's where I know him from.
So Young Jock would be the one for sure.
Okay. Twin Peaks or X-Files?
I've never seen either one of them.
Oh, Twin Peaks.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. I've only seen Twin Peaks. I've never really seen X-Files. So, what's something unexpected that you learned from conducting art therapy?
Something unexpected that I learned from conducting art therapy. Well, I mean, it's so much about like adapting and improvising. Like I can roll in with a lesson plan like laid out. Like here's what we're going to do, right? But anytime you go in with something rigid or something that you think is going to go planned, it goes off the rails, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of come in with like a loose idea of like, here's like a couple parameters, but let's just roll with it and see where it goes, right? That sort of thing. So just really to have to be adaptable as possible.
What's a moment in your life when you felt your hard work pay off?
Moment. Oh yeah, well, I just passed my licensing exam for that. Like to be a licensed mental health counselor, you have to pass a licensing exam. It's kind of been looming over my head. You can work as a therapist without it. You can underneath someone else's license, right? That was a big part of it. And then graduating from graduate school was a big part, because that was like a big life change up, because I had already had a career in drug development. I had a husband and a child, and like that put a lot of burden on my family. Was like, okay, I'm going to stop working now. It's going to come to like a single income household essentially, and I'm going to like pursue this whim of like being an art therapist. And so that created a lot of pressure on my family. And so finally, and then the pandemic hit right when graduate school was coming to an end. And so getting my clinical hours was hard. Even finishing my thesis was hard. There were just obstacles about, because you couldn't go to school and things like that. You couldn't be on campus. So all that stuff, those were major things. But passing this exam was like a really big deal for me. So and then I won't have to fuck with that stuff anymore.
Congratulations. When it's eventually time for us all to abandon this country, where would you like to escape to?
It's got to be like Norway, Finland, probably Finland. My handle on Instagram is Helsinki, the capital of Finland, because I really appreciate Finnish culture. Think that it's it's kind of a more socialist driven country. It's a very safe country. I mean, it's cold, but they have this philosophy of, it's called sisu, SISU, and it's about just having the personality trait of having grit, essentially having like resilience. And like their whole philosophy of living is like about self-care, taking care of yourself, being in nature, being with family, embracing silence, all of those things that kind of American culture is not really like. That would be the place I would go.
That sounds pretty wonderful. Are you okay to keep going with these questions?
Yeah, let's keep going.
All right. What's the oldest piece of clothing in your closet?
Oh, yeah. Well, I was in the Air Force. I still have Air Force uniforms from when I was 18, 19 years old.
Wow.
So yeah, I've got those. Those are probably the oldest. They don't fit anymore, but those are probably the oldest things that I have. Also, maybe some winter coats. I think once I get a good winter coat, I really get like a good one, a really unique one, and keep it forever.
I still have the most puffiest Gap winter coats that I got freshman year of college. Back when it was like the thing was to wear like the smallest t-shirt possible with the puffiest jacket. Like that was like the hip hop at the time. It's
that's
still
great.
something that I love.
Do you still wear that coat now?
I have a more modern version, but I still bust it out sometimes.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, what do you remember from your high school prom?
So this is really funny. So I went to an alternative school. Okay. I went to Booker T. Washington Alternative School for Girls. And so there was, it was a school where if you got pregnant in high school, you went there, or if you got expelled in high school, you went there. Right. So there was probably 50 kids at the whole school. all girls except for 3 guys. And the 3 guys that went there, you better believe they were really messed up people,
Yeah, they
right?
probably didn't get pregnant.
No, they didn't get pregnant. One of them had a kid though, and like had custody of the kid. Like it was just a wild experience. Um, it's totally wild experience going to that school. I thought I was like hard until I went there, and these are like the real hardcore people. So it's all girls. So we didn't have any guys really to go to a prom, but we had our first prom. This question's about prom, right? Is that okay?
Yeah, prom
So
memories.
the alternative school, they didn't have a prom, but we decided this year we wanted to have one, so we raised money and stuff. And people are like, "Oh, we'll give the bad girls a prom or whatever." So we had to figure out like how to get dates and things like that. And I ended up going to the prom with one of the 3 guys' brothers, who, because they not the three guys were
Yeah.
already taken or whatever. So I went with one of their brothers, and he picked me up in a monster truck with like super swamper tires, and he had a dip of chewing tobacco in his mouth and stuff. And I wore like 12-inch gold stripper heels that I got from like Spencer Gifts or like,
Wow.
something like that, whatever. But I mean, it was just the wildest thing. It was so ratchet because it wasn't like a regular school. It was this alternative
Yeah.
school that was just super wild.
That sounds like the best episode of Freaks and Geeks that never got made.
Yeah, no, it was really cool. And this in the second year of the same, that we had ended up having a junior and then senior prom. I wonder if that school is still having proms, honestly, but that was
Man,
that. I remember when I went to that school, they let us go smoke on our lunch break across the school at the homeless shelter. They let us smoke like at school and stuff.
it's
And I remember
concession.
we're standing out there. This girl's smoking a cigarette. She's got her baby in her arm like this, and she said, "Bitch, don't say anything to me. I'll throw this baby at you." Like that. That's like
God.
the worst threat. Like it was just that was like how it was going to that school all the time, and it was just like chaos. So it's like I think like when I'm around that stuff, like you described getting really nervous,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. It doesn't really bother me because it's like that was like in my developmental years was entrenched in shit like that, like crazy love and hip hop caliber,
Yeah.
throwing drinks, throwing babies in people's faces.
What's your favorite John Waters movie?
Oh, I really like Pecker a lot.
Yeah,
My
that's
favorite.
my
Is
favorite too.
that your favorite? That makes
Yeah.
me feel good. I love that. My favorite scene is shopping for others when they put the like preparation H into the
Yeah.
guy's cart. He's like, "There's nothing wrong with my butt," and then they put that like giant sexual like gourd in somebody's cart, and that lady's just holding it and like screaming because it's like
Yeah.
this big phallic thing or whatever. It's insane.
Yeah. What fashion trend do you think should come back? Even though I said you just said you're not really into trends, but what's a past trend that you think still has some value?
Um, I don't know, because I don't really, I'm really into like mid-century looking clothing. I like clothes that look like they're from the 70s. I like
Yeah,
stuff.
me
I
too.
kind of like structured looking garments. I like that like material that polyester's kind of come a long way. People used to sleep on polyester all the time. By that I mean they used to not like it. But some more structured looking things, not necessarily shoulder pads, but stuff that sturdier materials, some kind of maybe mid-century stuff, I guess.
Yeah. What's a book that you wish you could read again for the first time?
I like the book called it's called Lamb by Christopher Moore. Have you ever heard of him?
No, I haven't.
So this is Christopher Moore, Lamb, the Gospel According to Biff, Christ's childhood pal. So it's essentially
It's a lot to unpack there.
yeah, it's a comedy book about, how in the Bible the chapters of Jesus's life between the age of 13 and 30 are missing.
Yeah.
So they're saying there's a 13th apostle named Biff who is like Jesus's really funny friend, and they travel all around and they explore all the other world cultures, right? They're all the other world religions like Buddhism,
Yeah.
Confucius, Hinduism. They go around and they have all these funny, hilarious experiences and stuff. And the story is told from the perspective of Biff. And it ends up, with how the story of Jesus ends up, it ends up with Jesus dying, also Biff dies and stuff, but it's actually really hilarious. It's right here. I actually should read it. But Christopher Moore is a hilarious writer. He lives in Hawaii. This is a picture of him. On the back seat, he's like in a
Oh my
ball
God, he's in
pit.
the ball pit.
Yeah.
A lot of bacteria in those ball pits.
Yeah, so you can imagine it's a pretty funny thing for sure.
That's awesome. It's funny. The 80s television and movies made me believe I was going to grow up to meet a lot of Biffs and a lot of like Jeeves, and I haven't met like any of
No,
them.
I've never met a Biff ever, because Biff's name, it was the bad guy from
Back to the Future.
Back to the Future. Yeah, Biff,
Yeah.
right? No, I don't
Um,
think I've never met a Biff by name, but I've met a Biff by
by
personality for
choice.
sure.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I've
not
met
yeah.
some pretty biffy people in my day.
Yes, exactly.
What's a common misconception about yoga?
Oh, I think one thing that I've seen common misconception is that yoga people, yoga teachers are like granola. They have a totally holistic lifestyle, that they are flaky or that they are metaphysical or
Yeah,
things like that. I think that could be a misperception that that's like your identity, that is being a yoga teacher, that you're like, that's your whole deal, right? That's your
right.
whole, because it is a holistic practice, right? Whereas like mind, body, spirit, but like that's just like one part of like who I am and what I do. I believe in yoga because it strengthens communities. It keeps you connected to people that take care of themselves. It does do all of these wonderful things for mind, body, spirit. But I think misconception is that people are kind of like they call it woo woo,
Yeah.
and something like that they're like really like spiritual kind of like flakiness or something like that, or kind of kooky. But I've not seen that with myself, and I don't really see that with a lot of others either.
It's funny because I've done a lot of yoga in my day. For me, yoga is really practical. Like it's
Mhm.
something you can do once you sort of like, go on to classes and learn a little bit. You can do it anytime. You don't really need anything except for a mat. It builds
Right.
strength without really like where you can ease into things. Like it's a very practical practice that serves many purposes. And
Yeah,
so it is kind
absolutely.
of funny that
It's
it
like
has that woo-woo
calisthenics. It's like
attitude.
you can do it. Like you're like, you don't need weights, you don't need anything like that. You can do it anywhere. I mean, the sun salutations, like when you're rising, doing the runner's lunge and things like that. That was modeled after in people in India watching British soldiers doing their calisthenics in the morning. That's where they learned those. And then everything else, all the other postures are modeled and named after movements of animal things that happen in nature, right?
Yeah.
And it is practical, and it's something that covers all of the pillars of health, like balance, strength, cardio, flexibility, all of the things that you don't get from like weightlifting or just running. It gives you everything all in one.
Yep. Yep. You already mentioned this, but what's your go-to karaoke song? I'll throw out that I think mine is Ice Ice Baby or the Humpty Dance because I don't really have a singing voice, but
Yeah, I know. I do a lot of rap too. That's right, because it's not about talent. It's about having the balls and having the style to get up there and do it.
right.
I do a lot of rap too. I do Hip Hop Ray by Naughty by Nature,
Oh,
which is
Naughty by Nature is the most underrated hip hop. I love
yeah,
Naughty by
no, for sure. Naughty by Nature is great.
Nature.
OPP, all of
Stretch.
those.
Yeah.
Yes. No, I do Hip Hop Parade. That one is like a banger. When I do last time I did that one, that was like the whole place went nuts. Like it was insane. That one was awesome. I used to, so when I first stopped drinking years ago, I used to go to this Sunday evening karaoke night because it was a karaoke competition. And if you won, you got $50. And then if you won, you got to be advanced to the next round where you could win $1,000, right? And it was like this ongoing thing. There was this circuit of karaoke people. It was really fun. It was at a bar, but I wasn't
That's
drinking, and
awesome.
it gave me something to do, right?
Yeah.
And it was really interesting. And so that's how I met my son's father. He was a celebrity guest judge at this karaoke contest. Okay.
Mhm.
And I sang the song Give It Away by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And I changed the lyrics a little bit to be kind of like graphic. And I sang it like directly to him on the microphone and like looked him right in the eye. And then we had a kid like 9 months later.
It wasn't Anthony Kiedis, was it?
No, no. When I say celebrity, I'm using that term very loosely. He was like in a band and was able to judge the contest.
That's
So,
awesome.
mhm.
Um, would you rather be an hour early for every flight you take and never miss a flight, or would you rather get there 5 minutes before boarding ends but miss one in every five flights?
Oh no, hour early for sure. But the
Me too.
flight, I mean, that's like serious. Like I'm usually very early. I'm very punctual. I feel like being punctual is something that's easy to do.
Me
If
too. And
you're
I
a
think
person
it's like
that
you're being considerate with someone else's time, I think is what I think.
Yeah, if you're chronically late, you don't give a fuck, man, or you just don't have your shit together. You're like
Right.
frazzled, you're like sleeping in too much. I just feel like that being on time, like just showing up on time is one of the easiest things to do. Getting like, let's say to work, yeah, having to go to your job and perform, maybe that's a little bit more challenging. If you do one thing right that day, show up on time, that's an easy thing
Right.
to do.
Yep. Do you think it's important for people to feel cool?
I mean, yeah, by cool, if cool's like uh kind of like loose word or whatever, like the to feel hip. I mean, no. Do I think that it's important for people to feel included? Yes. I think it's important for people to feel like they're part of something, or like is it important to some people to feel like they're cooler than others? I don't think that's important. That's,
Right.
I feel like a lot of people want that and feel that. They feel a sense of I'm special or I'm better than other people. And that's fine. That's, some people, they feel that way. But I think maybe not so much the word cool, but I definitely think it's, oh, I want people to feel okay, like they're
Yeah.
accepted.
I think I asked the question because I think it's good for people at least one point in their life to know what it's like to actually have that feeling, because I think it's because it's like being up on skiing where it doesn't last for very long. So I think it's a nice
Mhm.
feeling when you have it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it would be nice to be like, yeah, what at that point in time, that moment in my life, I knew I was like
Right.
a cool guy.
Being
Like
addicted to
I was
that thought is not a good thing. It's they're trying
right,
like
that's
trying to be
true.
cool is the least cool thing. So
And
um
right. And if you have to say you're cool, you're probably not cool.
right. Yep. Have you ever had a lucid dream?
No, but I've experienced sleep paralysis before. You ever
I
experienced that before?
actually was gonna I almost asked that instead. I talked about that in another episode. I've had a couple lucid dreams and I had sleep paralysis once. It's pretty wild.
Horrifying feeling. I remember I had an apartment where um it was like a Victorian house renovated into apartments, and so it had really tall ceilings, but where I slept was a loft. So it's just enough room to sit up. You couldn't stand.
Mhm.
Sleeping there, waking up, being in experiencing sleep paralysis, seeing the clock, seeing the things around me, wanting to move, feeling like the ceiling's caving in on me, but I could not move. I was totally awake, but my body was still asleep, and
It's a
that was
wild feeling.
terrifying. It was wild, and I started researching it and reading about it and things like that. I didn't find much that was helpful at that point in time, but in fair, I was like deep in the throes of addiction at that point in time. So I was not sleeping a lot. I'd be stay awake for like 5 days and then sleep for like 5 days, that sort
Yeah.
of thing.
I would say too, I had that one experience I had, it was at a time where I was probably doing a little more than I should have too. So I think
Hmm.
yeah. And I think too the lucid dreaming for me was the opposite, is when I started, going stop doing stuff that I shouldn't have. Then my dreams came back hardcore, and then that's when I started having some of
Hmm.
those. But
Right, right.
what old TV show or movie would you like to see brought back?
What old TV show or movie would I like to see brought back? Well, I mean, we talked about Golden Girls, but it's not going anywhere. That's for sure. Hmm. If I would say I'd want something to be brought back, I would want to totally redo Game of Thrones season 8 because it was
Yeah.
horrible. They did every woman dirty in that. Braun the Broken can suck it. That was the dumbest decision ever. I mean, he was a fucking potato on wheels. He didn't do
Yeah.
anything. He sucked. He was horrible. And then to stab Daenerys Stormborn and have her dragon fly her off into the sunset was like raw. I was robbed. I still
Yeah.
feel robbed. I just watched that all those seasons. I just finished it like a couple days ago. Horrifying.
What's something that you would like to tell younger you?
Um, well, I would like to say don't do drugs, don't drink, don't do that. Um, I'd like to, there's a lot of times where I used to like lay awake, like before I'm where I'm at now, and be like, if I would have only done these things different, if I've only would have like not squandered that opportunity, things would be different. But right now in my life, I feel like I am exactly like have everything that I ever wanted.
Right.
Like I
You're
have
where you
a
need to
marriage,
be.
I have a child, I have a job that I really like. I do art, I have cool friends and stuff. And if anything would have changed, it wouldn't be where I am today. I know it sounds kind of like a cliche type of thing, but I
No.
actually can say those thoughts of laying awake at nighttime and thinking, God, I wish I would have done this differently.
All right.
I don't have those anymore.
What's something that you hope future you doesn't forget about the current you?
That future me doesn't forget about. Okay, so future me, I don't want to forget about my physical health, the importance of that. I don't like right now we're doing this like 6 week challenge where we like have to eat healthy and do like exercise, and I feel so much better. I don't want my future self to get busy or to get lazy or to get distracted and start putting that on the back burner, because I did that during the pandemic. I did that in graduate school and just kind of like went downhill, and just I don't like being tired and I don't like being achy,
Right.
and I'm not going to chalk that up to like, oh, you're just getting older. Like, no, dude,
Right.
I see people in the yoga community that are like killing it and they're like 70. So
Yep. Would you be the good cop or the bad cop?
I'd be the good cop. I always am with my clients. I'm always the
Me
one
too.
that's like, that's always, you know, I boundaries, my professional boundaries with people are, some clinicians would probably say are too loose or too weak or whatever. Like I'd come out of my own pocket. I'd come meet you in the middle of the night. I would do things like that. So it definitely would be the good cop, because I mean, fuck cops anyway. So.
Yeah. ACAB. What is your ideal song for the fashion runway?
Oh, RuPaul songs for sure. Cover Girl. All those songs are like runway. They're all inspired by the runway, and not just by like the runway, but like the fiercest, baddest queens on the runway. That sort of thing. Like people that are coming out not just to like look dead eyed and be like a walking hanger. They're coming out for ladies that are ready to like turn it out. They're wearing something that is like high concept, something that is super glam, those sorts of things. Anything from like the Glamazon album, anything from RuPaul really you could put would be as a great runway song.
Right. What was your first album
First album
that you ever
that
had?
that I ever had. I definitely had Ice Ice Baby, but it was just the no, I
The
guess I did have
single?
the whole. I had the single, yeah. MC Hammer. I've had Paula Abdul. That was one that I had. Cold Hearted Snake. I remember that one. I had Milli Vanilli, but I think the very, very first, if I have to go like way back, that I can remember, it's got to be those because we live next to a store called like Music Junction, and we'd walk down there and get the singles and get the tapes and
I
stuff
think
like
mine
that.
was Licensed to Ill by the Beastie Boys.
Yeah, that's
Um,
that's a good one for sure. Beastie Boys
what's
was super cool to me.
I love the Beastie Boys. Yeah.
Mhm.
What's your biggest challenge as an artist?
Feeling the pressure to have to keep making stuff all the time, especially if like you're on
Yes.
Instagram. I see my friends cranking out like crazy stuff. Like my friends, like I have one of my good friends who I do fashion shows with is Melt Face, aka Christopher Dance. He's in a lot of my posts and stuff. He is a sculpting teacher. He's a musician. He makes music all the time. He has an art night every Monday night. He is making all these crazy sculptures with like monsters and masks and stuff. And then I have a friend, Mary Beth. She paints all the time. Always, they just continue to create and create and create and stuff. And it's like I feel like, gosh, you know, am I not an artist? Am I not being if I'm not actively making things? Am I still an artist? That sort of thing. Like, or do I have to continue to make things to keep my brain sharp or to keep my skills sharp? But
Right.
really, like, my biggest skill that I have, I would not say I have real mastery of anything, not even like sewing or anything like that, is just the ability to improvise. And because I can improvise, I
Huge.
can make anything. I can make it work.
Yeah.
If you give me some parameters, I can do it. So
Um,
that's really it. It's just putting that pressure on myself. And like, is that the expectation of my art friends that I should be making new stuff all the time to stay relevant or to be justified as an artist?
yeah. Do you believe in ghosts?
No, I don't think so. No, I don't really think I do believe in ghosts.
All right.
But if you come up to me and you say that you saw a ghost and you're talking to me about it and stuff like that, I'm not gonna like shoot you down and say, nah, you're full of shit. I'm
You're right.
gonna listen.
Yeah.
In the realm of possibilities, could it be true? Sure, but I've never seen one.
What's a good piece of advice that you've received?
Blaze your own trail. That's my personal mantra. We have, icebreaker questions and people like one of my favorite ones, which you can answer this one too. If you were a billboard, what image and what slogan would be on your billboard? So mine would be a monkey on a dirt bike with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, going down a mountain, giving the middle finger, and it would say blaze your own trail, right? That's my billboard. What would yours be?
The slogan I always made up for myself back in the day was, as those who really know me know, there is no real me. So it would probably say
Oh,
something like that, which is sort of an idea about how you're constantly evolving and like the real you is a work in progress all the time. So
okay. I like that. Yeah, that's interesting. What would the image be?
I just picture that kind of swirling down into like an abyss.
Right. Right. That's a good one. There also good advice is when you stare into the
The
abyss
abyss
stares
stares
into
back at
you.
you. Yeah, I read
Yes,
that in the
right.
Infinity Gauntlet comic by Marvel when I was like in the sixth grade, and it stuck with me. It's
Mhm.
like Nietzsche,
It's true.
obviously.
And that's what I mean, that's for all the us people that watch true crime all the time. And then you go and work in an environment with people that are reentry population. It's like you're submerged in crime all day long. And
Yep.
then you wonder why you have dark thoughts. So
Yep. Yep. Do you prefer handshakes, high fives, fist bumps, hugs, or friendly waves?
hugs. I'm a hug. I'm a hug. I have been corrected, redirected several times for hugging people I'm not supposed to be hugging. In my interview for graduate school, I hugged the lady. She was like shocked. In one of my interviews for internship. We had to go and like interview with the people for internships. I hugged the lady. She called my supervisor and said, "This woman is so unprofessional." She hugged me. I can't believe it. Her boundaries are so poor. You need to watch out for her because she's going to be a problem and stuff. So there's a no hugging rule at the group home where I work right now. But I hug those people because I love them. I love them. You know, I know what it's like to be starved from attention. Like at basic training years ago, you physically go through 8 weeks where nobody touches you. And so you take for granted how the little tiny touches that you get throughout the day, you know, like whether it's something small or big, just physically having not another person put their hands on you at all is like deprivation. It really is. Because I remember when I was at basic training, this person reached down and helped me tie my shoe. Her putting her hand on my foot was so soothing to me, and this hostile environment I was in, that I was like, it did something to me that made me realize how valuable that is. But I get it, you know, there's people don't like that stuff or whatever, but I'm definitely a hugger.
What band would you follow around for a summer?
I really like the band Slightly Stupid. You ever heard of them before?
Yes. Yep.
I've seen them in concert a bunch. They're kind of like reggae, rock, ska all together. I've seen them a bunch of times. Lots of fun. I'd like to follow them around because I guarantee whoever they're touring with would be cool. As a Motley, G Love, those types of people.
I love G Love. I've seen G Love like 10, 15 times in my life.
Yeah, I've seen G Love. I know he wears the like drum on the back, like the harmonica strap. Like he kind of looks like the guy from Mary Poppins, the chimney sweep guy or whatever.
He just did an art show in Boston a couple weeks ago that I didn't find out about to the day of, but I would have gone to if I had better planning.
Yeah, that's cool that you like G Love. I mean, that's been years since I've seen them, but I would follow them around. You know.
You already mentioned this, but earliest memories of drag. You talked about your friend from high school.
Yeah. So, yes.
What fashion choice do you quietly judge others for?
Yeah. So there, you know, there's a lot of everybody wears two-piece yoga outfits all the time. So it's like a sports bra and the pants. It's getting kind of like crazy off the hook with those. Like that's like the thing. So I shouldn't judge for those sorts of things, but like I do, I guess that's something to kind of judge. And then another fashion thing that I judge people for. I don't know, it seems like there's a lot. I can't really think of it. Maybe it's because I blocked them out.
Well, we got about 20 more questions to go through them all. Do you want to push through and do them?
You're good. Yeah, right, go for it.
How old were you when you realized that you were an adult? Because I think about this, for me, it's either 13 or 37. Like
it's like late. It's like, and you know, I think I'm just now like realizing that like I would go to family functions and still refer to like my aunts and uncles as like the grown-ups and stuff, because like everybody just seems so grown. I've always had like a childlike curiosity, and curiosity really fuels a lot of my decisions. Like I'm just curious, what happens when I put the fucking potato skins down the garbage disposal? Is it gonna take it? Can I flush this down the toilet? Like I want, like the other day never mind, I won't tell it. I was talking about wanting to burn something. I'm like, I just wonder what it's like when you burn this. Like I just have this kind of curiosity.
I know exactly. Yeah, I know the exact type of curiosity you're talking about. Someone with ADHD, you come up with really bad ideas really quickly.
Yeah.
You know,
so that to me, but then when I realized that I'm more of an adult, is this job I have at the place where I work now is like I have to take a lot of responsibility for people that they don't have the capacity to be responsible. I work with a lot of people that are developmentally delayed. On top of that, they have schizophrenia. On top of that, they don't have any family. All these people that they have, and I just having to manage a lot of really complex problems for them, like their social security, their disability, their appointments, you know, and then on top of that, trying to teach them life skills and trying to help them with their trauma, those sorts of things. I had to help them with a really complex court case and things like that. So that sort of thing. And then just trying to get the clients to understand the decorum of being in public or being in a group setting and bringing dignity back to their lives of like, hey, let's put on a clean shirt today. Let's brush our teeth. Those sorts of things. All that stuff's really translated into my own life of wanting to regain and sustain dignity in my own life, dignity of behavior, you know, of like having, not having as much tolerance for like reckless behavior, things like that sort of thing. And I'm just kind of coming into that now, honestly.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Are you still friends with anyone that you went to preschool with?
Yes, I am. Amanda Watson. Shout out to Amanda Watson. She was like my mom's best friend's kid, right? And so that's somebody that she knows a lot. We know like almost everything about each other just because our moms like fill us in about stuff. I don't see her very
Yeah.
often. There's
I'm
probably times
surprised
when we
too. I had a few of
weren't
those too
friends,
that I've
but
known I'm like, I've known since we were like 4. Like that's unbelievable. Like,
hmm yeah, there. I think there could be some others and stuff. I have a whole lot of cousins. Cousins are like your first friends, you know. So I have a
right. Yeah.
big cousin family. But yeah, Amanda Washington, if you're out there and you're watching this, shout out.
All right. How do you think the Smurfs tell each other apart?
Well, they all have a defining thing, right? You know, so
But it's
that
like, do you
like
have to carry, if you're like harpist Smurf, do you carry a harp around all the time so people know who you are?
you'd have to, you know what I mean? But here's the thing now. Think of it this way. Penguins, they all look alike, right? Every
Yeah.
single one of them look alike. How they differentiate themselves and remember who their mate are is through the distinct sounds. They have a song, right, that they sing. So if I was a Smurf, what I would do, because they all look the same, let's strip away all of their material possessions. They don't have the flower in their hair, they don't have the mirror for vanity, they don't
Yeah.
have even Smurfette doesn't have the blonde hair. You have to distinguish yourself through it would have to be through sound, or you really can't emit a smell or anything like that. So
Right.
you'd have to have a distinct song or
But
tone of
they all sing
voice.
the same song. The tra la 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 la. I guess
They'd
they
have to
must they
they'd have
figure it
to
out.
switch it up or they'd be really fucking confused all the time. I mean, they would evolve or they would die, right?
That's
That's the thing.
true.
Evolutionary pressure, evolve or die, they'd all die. Or they'd end up
Okay.
killing each other.
That's a movie I'd watch. What's a surprising fact about RuPaul?
Um, surprising fact about RuPaul. I believe that RuPaul can really do anything, so it's hard to be surprised. Um, about RuPaul. One thing about RuPaul is that RuPaul really does a good job of like staying current on all pop culture because that's an important part of being a drag queen, apparently, especially if you're going to be in the industry or whatever, like
Right.
as part of it.
RuPaul's been
So
around for a long time too.
that's what I'm saying. And so like RuPaul's super old and like was popular way back in the day, but still continues to stay relevant and know all the like new artists. Like every time I have a celebrity guest judge, it'll be somebody that like all the young folks know. I have no
Right.
idea who that is. So like the ability to transcend like the ages and to stay current. I mean, she probably has a team of people being like, okay, now this is Ariana Grande, or you know,
Right.
she's a
Right.
little bit, but
But
whoever
still, to
these
know it's
younger
important to
people
do
are.
that, you know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
If you got arrested, who'd be the first person you called?
My husband.
If you won the
He'd
lottery,
be
who'd be
cool.
the first person you called?
I don't know if I'd want to. I'd be pretty selective. I'd call my husband too, right? But I wouldn't call a whole bunch of people because then people would be coming out of the woodwork trying to get my lottery
I
winnings.
know. What's a talent that you wish you had?
A talent. I wish I knew how to play a musical instrument really well, like play the piano. You know,
Yeah.
like there's some also. You know what is really impressive to me is when people can do like backflips and shit like that. Like I used to be
Yeah.
able to do that.
I
People that
couldn't
can do
even.
flips and like tricks and stuff, like having this physical ability to do
I
stuff
got
like that.
none of that. Zero.
Yeah, but it's so impressive when people do though. It's like you're
Yeah.
still doing backflips,
I
like
have some
doing
friends
a
that do stuff
backflip
like that. It
across
blows
a
my
diving
mind.
board.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I have friends that do things on skis that I wouldn't do on a roller coaster. Um,
Yes.
if you were a superhero, what power would you want your sidekick to have? And your sidekick is a medium-sized turtle. That's
A
question
medium-sized
66.
turtle. Okay, so so one, I'd want them to have the abilities that a human has. Like that would be a superpower for a turtle, right? Because if they just have the ability that a turtle has, they wouldn't do me any good, really. So
Yeah.
I'd want them to be super intuitive to all of my needs before I even really know that I need them, right?
Yeah.
Just be there and be like, let me get you your drink. Just kind of like a Mr. Belvedere of turtles. That would be a superhero turtle
Not
to
bad.
instinctively know what I want them to do.
Are
But
you
I
the
mean,
Bob
like,
Euchre in this situation? That question doesn't count. What song gets you the most pumped up?
what song gets me the most pumped up? Right now, the song that gets me the most pumped out of every song is Redline by Jordy Kiefer. Do you know that song?
No, I'll look it up though.
Oh, dude, that song, that was another whole album, but I heard that song on like an Instagram reel, listened to it a million times. It's like, I come from a long, long line of denim jean. Like, it's just the best.
I
You
already
know,
love it.
yeah.
Um, why do so many people give up on their dreams?
I think that, you know, I think that they think it's just that a dream, but they don't think that it can become realistic. Maybe they have people that telling them that they can't do it. You know, I think it's like I think being around the right people, I think that that brought a lot of my dreams to fruition, being around people that were supportive and like-minded, that kind of can help you see creativity, that sort of thing. But maybe it goes back to also of like, when we talked about earlier, the innate creativity, they don't think that they're not optimizing that innate part of their personality, right? That innate part of what it is being a human. And they feel like there's too many obstacles. They can't adapt, they can't improvise, they can't overcome. And so they just don't see a way to achieve these things, right? And so I think if more people tapped into that creativity that they had, that they could find a way to achieve their dreams. Or also managing expectations, like, are you going to be in the NBA? Maybe not.
Maybe
Could you
not,
be
yeah.
like a coach, or could you start designing basketball jerseys or something? Like, I think there's a level of people, they don't really get to explore what they're good at and what they're interested in, right? And when your interest and your talents meet is when you find optimal job. This is a part of counseling too. It's like vocational counseling, right? You find these two things. People don't get enough time to explore those things. So like, you're 18 years old, your parents make you go to college. You're not old enough to know what you're good at or what you're interested in. You major in accounting and that's it, right? And then you look back at your life and you say, I wish I always wanted to be an artist, or I always wanted to be,
And they
sports
never
manager.
realize how close they always could have been if they just, I mean, most things are doable if you
Exactly.
try. When I say the words pro wrestling, what's the first name that you think of?
Ric Flair. Whoop, whoop,
Woo!
whoop. Ric Flair. He's getting ready to come to Indiana in 2 weeks. He's going to be here at the World of Wheels, the O'Reilly World of Wheels car show at the Indiana State Fairgrounds. He's going to be here next Sunday. Ric Flair signing autographs. Yes, he got that drip.
The Nature Boy, yeah.
That's one. Yeah,
Ric
Flair, no doubt.
If you were to dedicate yourself to one charitable cause for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Community mental health. Community mental health, no doubt. I mean, like, it's always chaotic. They can't keep therapists. They can't keep, they can't keep care managers. They can't keep managers. The clients really underserved because people in community mental health don't get paid enough. It's too stressful. They don't manage caseloads. But I really would give like a huge ass grant to have art therapy programs across the board for people.
All right. I think we're at less than 10 questions now. What is one preconceived idea you had about me before we started this interview?
That you were gonna be like a lot more gangster, like a lot more like that was what I thought you were gonna be like. I was like, this is really funny. So like, I was trying to figure out what I was gonna wear and stuff. So I have this Ivan Drago jacket,
like Rocky IV.
From Rocky.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but it has the sickle and hammer. I thought that might be controversial, but I was like, I know you like Wu-Tang Clan, you like hip hop and stuff, so I thought maybe you're gonna have like a lot of like swagger like that or whatever, that you might be like G'd up or something. So that's kind of what I thought.
That's funny. You disappointed?
No, I'm not. No, you're very endearing, very nice to talk to.
So. Same with you. What's something you wish you learned in high school but you weren't taught?
Art. I didn't do anything artistic. If I was doing creative stuff back then, like with fashion, with art, these things, I probably wouldn't have been like drinking and doing drugs. I mean, maybe not. I don't know. I would have had something more useful to do with my time, optimizing my talents. Because when you start going haywire and you're not going to be a cheerleader anymore, then you're not participating in sports anymore, which is kind of like what I did before, was like sports, gymnastics, things like that. Those things aren't going to be a reality for you at the alternative school because they don't even have a gym, let alone an athletic program.
I used to go to a local school around where I used to live, and I used to go talk to the students, and they had like these full like tablets, like this thing that you draw on the screen, and you're just like, we had like a kiln in some like cheap clay, and we were like told to make a pinch pot. Like that's
right, exactly. So
it's like preparing me to live in like ancient Egypt is what they're preparing me to do.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So that wasn't anything like that. That would have been something that would have been good for me.
All right. What are 5 celebrities you would choose to live in a treehouse for 3 months with as part of a reality show?
Okay, so it would probably be, I would want to live with Rue McClanahan. I'd want to live with RuPaul. I'd want to live with Daniel Day-Lewis, but him as Daniel Plainview, the character from There Will Be Blood.
Ooh, good Lord, you're really taking a risk there.
No, I love him. Listen to me. So Daniel, that character, Daniel Plainview, that was the most slothiest, laziest point in my life when I saw Daniel Plainview down in that pit crawling across the desert. Like he's a self-made man. Like that really inspired me to stop being such a lazy piece of shit, you know.
Yeah.
But I know he like went haywire and was greedy, but he was a person that was very masterful at survival and making a name for himself, right?
Yeah.
So if I had to live in a treehouse, yeah,
Yeah.
I would have him there, right? Maybe Blanche and RuPaul could like help him not be such a dick or whatever. And then more people. Was there 5
I
people
think
that we
yes,
named?
5. Yeah.
Um, I would also like maybe like Bear Grylls or some. He's
Yeah,
also a
it's pretty useful.
survivalist guy. Yeah, he would be useful. And then, let's see. So that leaves one more person that's a celebrity to live in a tree house with. Maybe somebody that was like a celebrity chef or some shit like that, so they can cook
Yeah.
us some food.
Yeah, that's a good choice. All right.
Like not one of the mean one, not like Chef Ramsay, but like a nice, fun person. You know, maybe like Emerald, like the Bam guy from like the Creole Cajun chef or
You wouldn't
whatever.
want to see. You don't think Chef Ramsay and Daniel Day-Lewis there watching them get into it? That's good television, I think. Is
Yeah, no,
watching those two get into it.
that would be really interesting for sure.
That's
So
probably better for the people at home than the people in the treehouse.
yeah,
All right, 6 questions left. If money and time were no object, what would be your ideal art project?
of money and time are no object, my ideal, so it would be like a big huge community thing. I've always wanted to have a huge like fashion parade, like out on the East Coast they have like the mermaid parade,
Mhm.
right? They have like the, you know, this big thing with the floats and the outfits and stuff. There's this cool trail called the Cultural Trail that goes all the way through Indianapolis. It starts downtown and goes like down to the other side of town and stuff, to have like a great big huge wearable art parade where everybody gets to be on floats, like the big floats, like the cool ones, you know, like the crepe
Mhm.
paper and the moving parts and stuff. And we just have this huge conceptual parade walking down the cultural trail and stuff. And it would culminate in a great big fashion party, wearable art party. And that would be it.
Awesome. What is your perfect dessert?
Oh, perfect dessert. Oh, gosh. I don't know. I haven't had a dessert in a while, but I like stuff with coconut a lot. I think that's really good.
I
Like
never had
coconut.
coconut until like 5 years ago because I thought I was allergic to it. And then I looked at my
Uh-huh.
vitamins one day and it said coconut oil. I've been taking them for like 10 years. I'm like, I guess not. And I had a Mounds bar and I'm like, where have you been my whole fucking life?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, almond joy mounds.
I'm
That's the
allergic
shit.
to,
I can
I
get
am
it.
allergic to almonds, unfortunately.
Are you? Oh no. All right. Well, no, I like stuff with coconut. I think that's really good. Um, yeah, that sort of thing.
All right.
Strawberry shortcake's good.
What fashion brands were you into as a teenager?
So when I think about fashion brands, when I was in high school, there was a store called Gadzooks. I don't know if you remember this store.
Of
You
course.
remember Gadzooks? So they had like the belt with like it was like the seat belt with all the bottle caps around it
Yeah.
and stuff
I
like
both
that.
worked at Spencer Gifts and Hot Topic, so I know
Okay,
Gadzooks.
so I shopped at Hot Topic too. So I liked, in when I was in high school, the trends were coming back around, was like big chunky heels, like the 70s trends are coming back, like bell bottom pants and things like that. That was the sort of thing. So but then when I was in elementary school, what was popular was like Guess jeans, Guess
Yes.
t-shirt, Esprit, Keds,
What was
Sam
that
and Libby
French brand? It
flat.
was Martin Gerbeau. I always forget it, but we used to be into that back in like 7th grade. Like that and like starter jackets and like
Yeah,
backwards
starter
crisscross
jackets.
jeans.
Yes, yeah, that's right. So Malcolm X had do you remember Malcolm X clothing line? Remember
Yes.
that?
Yep.
That
Cross
was the
colors. I
thing.
had a bunch of
Mhm.
cross colors too.
Yeah, cross colors.
Yep.
Yes, I remember that.
The
So the
fashion of
tight
in
roll,
living color.
yes, we would tight roll our jeans, like peg the jeans with
Yes.
Sam and Libby flats with like a big bow, and then wear an oversized Esprit t-shirt with the sleeves rolled up and then tucked into like the mom jeans.
It is weird that as I think of it, the fashion sense for me in like junior high was mixed between In Living Color and Saved by the Bell.
Oh yes, right. I love that. I
Yeah.
have to transfer over here. We're going into this.
It's all right. We
Going
got
into the other room.
3 questions left.
Mhm.
Have you ever had an interesting encounter with a celebrity? And you just mentioned one earlier. The
Which encounter did I say with the celebrity that I
one that was
had?
a celebrity judge.
Oh yeah. Oh, that wasn't an actual celebrity. But yeah, actually, this is a funny story. So my Larry Bird. Oh, can you see me? Hang on.
Yes, I went to your picture. Larry Bird. I'm as a Celtics. I grew up in the Celtics, so I love Larry Bird.
Oh, you're gonna love this. All right, Larry Bird lived with my parents before he started school at Indiana State University.
What?
So Larry Bird, yes, because he went to ISU. My dad's worked at ISU his whole career. I went to Indiana State for my first 2 years of school. My sister's a graduate from there, right? Larry Bird lived with my parents the summer before he started school after he left Indiana University for ISU. This is funny. So then later on, cut to like years later, right? My sister was on Jeopardy, and I can send you this link if you ever want to look at it.
I
So when
love
Alex
Jeopardy. Is
Trebek,
my favorite. I love Jeopardy.
right. So when Alex Trebek comes up to you and asks you, what's a special fun fact about you, right? And she said, Larry Bird slept in my childhood bed. And so then the next day, the guy that does the show Talk Soup, Joel McHale,
Yes.
he saw that clip of my sister on that show and made fun of her first talking about Larry Bird sleeping in her childhood bed. Like seriously, like clowned her. It's hilarious. And then made fun of Terre Haute, Indiana, where we're from and stuff, and like made this whole joke about it. And so that was like the claim to fame. So I haven't ever met Larry Bird, I don't think, but he did live with my parents. He did sleep in my sister's childhood bed. It was talked about on Jeopardy, and then later was made legendary by getting clowned on Talk Soup by Joel McHale.
Wow, I'm good at asking questions.
You are.
I'm really pulling some good stuff
we did
out
it this way because it makes it so much more fun, and I always have good answers to these questions.
Yeah. All right, only two more. What's the first website you go to each morning?
Instagram. Go to Instagram. Yeah, right. That's where I go to. I mean, Instagram is, I've gotten like any art job I've ever gotten, any fashion show I've ever gotten has been through Instagram.
Yep. All right, last question. And this is actually probably can answer this big one you just said. Would you prefer to live in a world without social media and smartphones?
I don't know. I mean, I did before, you did
right.
before, right? We didn't have any of those things and figured it out just fine, I mean,
I sucked at everything back then, though. I've only started getting good at stuff when I can watch someone else do it on YouTube and go, I can figure that out. Like that's to me the biggest thing is I struggled with learning when I was younger. I was a good student. I was like National Honor Society president for some reason, but I almost failed off because I was doing shitty in chemistry and I don't know where I was going with this. I was rambling, but I couldn't learn well back then. And now there's so many different ways to learn, like through YouTube and pausing and stopping. That saved my life in some ways.
Well, that's interesting. That's an interesting way to put it. Hang on, I'm gonna take a screenshot of us doing this.
All right.
There we go. So that's an interesting way to put it. And right now I would it would be very difficult to revert back to that, but they always say like disconnecting, getting back into nature, those things. Do I ever feel worse after taking a break from social media? No, I don't. No, I really don't. But it would be really hard to go back. But I do think about like having reminisced about all these things from our past that we've talked about. I do think of those times of how I did just fine, like traveled in the airport without a cell phone, did all of these things without any of that stuff and did okay,
Yeah. I left my wallet at home when I went to Home Depot today to pick up something that was already paid for, and I had like a minor heart attack. But I was able to call my girlfriend, and she found it, and it was heart attack averted.
Yes, right. So that's a good point. It makes things like, hey, just not having to print out MapQuest directions to drive somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine doing that, not having GPS? Like GPS is
like people give you instructions that were like, take a left at the cloud. It's like, and you're expected to find it. Like,
yeah, that's exactly. If you get to the little pink house, you've gone too far. Yeah, that sort of thing. So.
So that was 79 questions. This is a supersized episode of the Articulate Ox podcast.
I love that. Tell me, why is it called Articulate Ox?
So Ox is the character that I created. You see Ox in a lot of my art, my album covers. It's an astronaut character. Mm-hmm. And I finished this new hip hop album called Drinking Songs for Children that I made last year. And I was able to reach out to some of my favorite rappers. I got like Cool Keith on it, Raz Cass, Elza, Young Dirty Bastard, the son of Old Dirty Bastard, like Esoteric from Czarface, copyright, a bunch of cool people, and I'm making a film that's based on my Ox character. It's the film is called Drinking Songs for Children. It's like a music video for the entire album with like little comedy bits in between.
That's amazing.
Right. And it's like that's the character in there. So it's sort of kind of like it's kind of like Humpty Hump a little bit, because I play Ox in the thing, but I also play me. So it's sort of like Humpty Hump meets Shock G. So that's the weird, because Digital Underground to me was a huge influence when I was a kid.
Totally I love the concept of Shock G and Humpty Hump. So like the guy that I do fashion shows with, Melt Face, his real name's Christopher, and he's a sculpting teacher and like an artist. But when he puts on this luchador mask, it's this red and black spiral thing. This is like becomes a different person, right? And so him and another guy named Eduardo.
I have my Ox luchador mask right here with the middle finger.
Yeah, let me see. That's amazing. See, that's amazing. You'd fit right in. You could wear that and you could be part of what we do. So I'll send you Le Ultimoto 3, the last like wearable art show we did together. We had all luchadors there helping the models on and off the stage. My co-host was a luchador. And so everybody kind of has this my alter ego is called Ultra 5000. And so we all kind of have this alternative persona where we can like channel our strangest proclivities into it and stuff.
That's sort of what Ox is a little bit to me. That's fun to have something like that, you know. And
Yeah,
I always love pro wrestling, and I always love the people like the face paint, the ones that really took it to that extreme. That always really captured my imagination as a kid. So
yeah. That's wild. Well, this has been absolutely delightful getting to talk to you. I'm so glad
same.
you did lightning round questions. It's the best way to do an interview. You can get all of the details. All of your questions were perfect for getting the full story, really, and being hilarious at the same time.
Yeah, this was so great. Thank you very much for joining me, and it's been a pleasure getting to know you better. And we'll have your social media on over there so people can find you and they can find what you do and all that stuff. So
Great. And you said May is when it's going to happen?
yeah, I think May is. I have a bunch of episodes recorded that are already scheduled to go up. I think this will go up in May. So I'll keep you posted.
Well, I can see it. This is going to be a good one.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.